If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 101, Comic Store. Sitting leisurely on the rocket, Lorien used his power to turn it silent as the noise was getting on his nerves. Then, he slowed it down and lowered its altitude, wanting to enjoy the scenery. In the past 24 hours, he's been working hard to destroy as many bases and launch sites as he could, which caused him to be unable to enjoy his travel, but now that he finished his work, he could finally do that. Looking back, Lorien watched as the waves broke and parted, leaving a long trail of white foam-like bubbles behind the rocket as it travels at a low altitude just above the calm sea. Turning his head to the left, he could also see dolphins jumping above the water before diving right back down. That with the cold sea breeze made this experience all the more relaxing. Just sitting there, Lorien felt very peaceful. But sadly, this didn't last for long, as soon after, he reached the Japanese mainland. This is mainly because he wasn't that far away from it in the first place. The location the submarine was situated at was between China and Japan, and close to South Korea, so it only took him about 10 minutes to nearly reach the mainland. Getting closer and closer to it, Lorien finally moved the rocket back up, distancing it from the Earth. His destination now is Tokanosha City. Swish! Still flying silently, the rocket pierced through the air. It's been a couple of minutes since Lorien entered Japan's territory, and looking below, all he could see is just burning cities and people and zombies killing each other. It is complete disorder and chaos. This apocalypse has truly brought out the worst in people. It's just humanity's true nature surfacing. Looking indifferent, Lorien didn't bother watching those scenes. After all he felt from it is just pity. All those people could have provided me with dream energy. Shaking his head, Lorien was about to increase the rocket's speed to get home quicker, but just then, something below suddenly caught his attention. Is that a manga/comic store? Seeing it, Lorien suddenly remembers something he had previously wanted to check out, so after thinking about it for a moment, he instantly waved his hand, causing the rocket to disappear. Swish! Falling through the air, Lorien's eyes stayed locked on the store, not looking in any other direction. Puff! Landing gracefully on the earth, Lorien didn't cause any movement. Even the dust on the floor wasn't affected. Step! 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 Walking into the store, the first thing Lorien did was kill all the zombies present there. Then, he closed off the doors and blockaded them as he wanted to focus. This store is quite big. Looking around, there are all sorts of books, comics, and mangas. It appears that this store sells a bit of everything, not really specializing in any specific genre. Looking at the numerous mangas to his right, Lorien scanned through them quickly, noticing some familiar ones such as Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, etc. But there was one specific manga that attracted most of his attention. It's Kimetsu no Yaiba. This. Why is it here? That shouldn't be the case. I clearly remember that it was released in 2019 in my previous world. It's currently 2011 here. Quickly grabbing it, Lorien then started scanning through the content, and checking some of the details available on the cover and inside, such as the writer, release, etc. Using his power to accelerate the process, it didn't take him long to finish reading it. The content is roughly the same, there are some minor changes, but as far as I can tell, the plot and story are the same. The manga has been serialized a couple of years ago in Monthly Dragon Age, but different from my previous world. It's not written by Koyoharu Gotage, but by Randomue Sekusha. Randomue Sekusha, I've never heard of him before. It's probably some random author in this world. Tisk, doesn't matter though, I've got most of the information I wanted to know. Shaking his head, Lorien then sat down cross-legged on the floor, not caring about its dirty state, and started thinking hard. It seems that information about worlds appears in different worlds in the form of movies, anime, films, books, and novels. But it also appears that only the information itself is somewhat fixed, but the author himself and the release time isn't. But why does this happen? I don't think a world will just send off its own information for everyone to read without any gain or reason. What does the world have to gain for this? And how does this information even spread across nothingness? Thinking hard about it, Lorien felt a headache. The information he currently has is nowhere near enough for him to make an educated guess. But hey, I now know that the world I was born in isn't the only one that has this sort of information, which is quite helpful. Shaking his head, Lorien finally decided to leave it for later, but before leaving, he turned his head toward all the mangas, comics, and stories left there. There are a lot of stories that I don't recognize. I should take them with me and read them later. Who knows, one day, I may find myself in one of those worlds, so I should gather as much information as I could. Deciding on this, Lorien then created a huge wooden box and started stuffing them inside one book after another. I'll read them after I get home. Finishing this, Lorien then finally made his way out of the store with the wooden box floating right behind him. Speaking of which, now that nukes have started flying all over the globe and an EMP had already struck Japan, the Takagi estate should have already fallen. I should check on it on my way. After all, I still need someone to manage the base for us, and Saya's parents are a perfect choice for it. Thinking of this, Lorien then jumped high into the air and used his power, causing a rocket to appear just under his feet. Putting the wooden box on it and then sitting, he then activated it, causing it to instantly shoot out toward Tokanosha City. I hope they haven't died. It would be too much of a pain finding qualified people like them in this sort of environment. Chapter 102, EMP and Breach. Boom. Followed by a huge fireball appearing at a high altitude, a white blinding light instantly shrouded the sky. This is caused by a nuclear explosion taking place up in the atmosphere. The moment it exploded, a burst of electromagnetic radiation was created. The resulting rapidly varying electric and magnetic fields met with electrical and electronic systems produced damaging current and voltage surges. In simple terms, an EMP was created. And the moment that happened, all electrical devices in Japan and many neighboring countries were immediately fried, turning obsolete. Normally, that wouldn't have been possible considering that the range of an EMP is closely related to the blast radius of the nuke, which is far from enough to cover all of Japan and some neighboring countries as it did just now. However, now is the apocalypse, and the world itself wants humans dead. So the moment the bomb went off in the atmosphere, some aid was given by the world, allowing the effect to expand way beyond its normal possible range. Puff. Pook. Crack. Device after device, any and all electronic apparatuses were fried, even those that would normally withstand such an event weren't spared because of the boost given by the world. Of course, this sudden event caused a lot of survivors to be unlucky, and such an example is the Takagi estate. There, the moment the EMP swept over, a chain reaction occurred as overall confusion quickly ensued. The computers and phones that were being used for communication and intel gathering suddenly shut down, all vehicles also stopped working, there was even some unlucky guy that had a pacemaker who suddenly fell down, his heart stopping. But all of that was just the beginning of the chaos. As a consequence of the confusion caused by the sudden outage, zombies suddenly attacked and were able to break through the defense line. Ah! The barricade! Cried a man who was running for his life. This sudden scream quickly attracted the attention of those who were standing in the front yard. "Don't follow me! Don't follow me!" yelled the same man as he turned around the moment he reached the gate and started shooting his gun at the zombies. Taking a couple of shots, he then turned around again wanting to run, but this time, it appears that he is unlucky as he was suddenly caught from behind by two zombies. Ah! Ah! No! All of this happened under the eyes of the defense team, who quickly ran towards the gate to close them off after receiving the order from the commander. "Quickly! Close the gate!" ordered the man who seemed in charge. Slam! Clang! Seeing the gate getting closed, the man then turned his head toward the group of four who were standing behind him. This man is Saya's father, called Soichiro Takagi, and the four who were standing behind him are Saya, Komuro, Rei, and Hirano. It appears that even with the changes caused by Lorien, this group was still somewhat able to make it here. Moreover, it seems that the Humvee given to them by Lorien also allowed them to make it there much faster than they did in the original timeline. "Commander, Madam! I have brought your weapons," said one of the guards as he ran towards Soichiro and Yuriko. Taking the weapons, Saya's mother then handed one to her daughter as she spoke. "Use this, Saya-chan. I don't know how to use this thing. And why do you even have a gun? I attended an executive self-defense course while I was working at Wall Street. I might even be a better shot than your father." Saying this, she then turned her head toward Hirano and said, "You'll teach her how to shoot, right, Hirano-kun?" "Yes, ma'am." Clang! Rag! Raik! Suddenly, hearing the noise coming from the gate, everyone turned their attention toward it. Clin! It appears that this herd of zombies became too much for the gate to handle as it started creaking and looked like it was about to give in. Boom! Ray! Suddenly, the gate was ripped out of its position as zombies quickly swarmed in under the ghastly eyes of everyone present. "Commander! Escape! yelled one of the loyal guards who was closest to the gate as he was being eaten. Get back! Seeing the zombies break in, chaos quickly ensued as all the survivors quickly began running disorderly. As for the guards, they were trying to stop the zombies with all their strength. This included Komuro's group of 4. There is no end to them. No kidding. The longer this gets dragged on, the worse it gets. We should have stayed at that base. It's not time for this. Boom. As they were fighting, everyone seemed to unconsciously group up at the estate's front door where the commander was situated. Commander, I checked from the 2nd floor, the people we deployed to the neighboring area are yet to be attacked, we may be able to retake the gate. Hearing this, Suichiro fell silent for a moment before responding resolutely. We shall break through this mob and head to the neighboring area. Men who have the will to fight, assemble. Women and children who wish to live, gather in the back. Hearing his decision, the first to respond was his daughter Saya. Papa, if we barricade ourselves in the house. But just as she spoke, the man interrupted her. There is no meaning in protecting the house. The iron gate was run down. Even if we stay in the house, they'll just force their way in and we'll be eaten. Saying this, he then turned his head toward the burning yard in front of him as he spoke to Komuro. Komuro, falter not. Embark on your own path. Yes. Hirano, I am entrusting my daughter to you. Papa. Slap. But just as Saya yelled, her mother suddenly grabbed her and gave her a slap. Mama. Suichiro and I have a duty to perform, it is our selfish desire as your parents to leave you in their hands, please don't make this any harder than it already is. Mama. Now, go. Shouted Yuriko at their small group. Mama, Papa, I love you. This was the last phrase Saya left as she ran with the other 3 under her parents' watchful eyes as tears filled her eyes. Seeing this, Suichiro's eyes turned resolute as he then looked away and towards the zombies. Now. Throw the dynamite. Chapter 103, Rescue. Moving fast, the group of 4 had to fight some zombies so they can make it to the garage where the Humvee was. But thankfully, this wasn't much of an issue as the garage wasn't that far away and there weren't many zombies blocking them. Reaching their destination, Saya quickly spoke to the man who was there and asked him about its state. Luckily for them, it appears that the vehicle was somehow able to withstand the EMP remaining completely operational. Of course, this is mainly because it was Lorien who made it, so it is quite resilient. If Lorien were to see this, he would probably act smug and say something along the lines of, here at Lorien's Architectural, Industrial, and Automotive Group, our goal is to offer the best services and products there are. Customer satisfaction is our motto. P.S. We don't offer refunds. However, this small group of 4 didn't care about this at all as all they can think of now is running away from this place. Jumping into the car, they quickly started it and began driving away at a great speed, running over a bunch of zombies in the process. Swish! Driving fast, it didn't take them long to get through the small drive and into the front yard where the fight was ongoing. Vroom! Passing by her parents who were still fighting, Saya's eyes were full of reluctance as she watched them get further and further away. Papa! Screamed Saya as the car finally made it out of the gate and into the streets before swiftly fading away into the distance. Seeing this, Soichiro, who had a stoic face, finally heaved a sigh of relief as a small smile appeared on his face. Now I have nothing to worry about. Swish! But just then, as he was about to return to combat, a bright light coming from the opposite side to where the car had just gone attracted the man's attention. Looking up to the source, Soichiro and everyone else who looked there had their eyes shrink in fright as a sense of horror instantly enveloped them, causing their hearts to sink. A missile! Everything happened so quickly no one had the time to react or think about the reason as to why the rocket was silent. After all, by the time they noticed it, it was already next to them. But then, just as they were waiting for the impact and the following explosion, something absurd happened. The moment the missile impacted the earth, it actually disappeared as if it was never there, and in its place stood a young man with a floating chest next to him. This sudden turn after turn of events caused everyone to fall into a daze, even forgetting to shoot at the zombies who were still swarming toward them. Tisk, is my entrance so shocking? Shaking his head, Lorien's lips tilted slightly as he waved his hand, creating a barrier around all the survivors who were there, effectively saving them. Then, he linked all the barriers, pushing all the zombies away and putting everyone there in front of him. Cough. Seeing that they were still in a daze, Lorien coughed lightly to wake them up and attract their attention, which he succeeded at. The first to speak was Soichiro, who moved to the front of the crowd with his wife and stood in front of him. You are. Standing in front of Lorien, Soichiro was still shocked by what had just happened. First, the explosive entrance, then, the barrier protecting them, moreover, Lorien's looks that were out of this world. By out of this world it doesn't mean that Lorien is so handsome he affected Soichiro, by that it means that it is unusual. Shining silver hair, and deep abyss-like golden eyes, even in this world with multicolored hair everywhere it is very rare or even non-existent. Hi. My name is Lorien. I was just passing by and noticing your situation, I decided to save you. Lorien. Hearing the name, sudden realization instantly hit Soichiro. Isn't this the name of one of the two supernatural beings that Saya and the others spoke about? Why is he here? Thankfully, it appears that he doesn't mean any harm, otherwise, there is nothing we can do. But there must be a reason for his appearance, I don't believe that he was just passing by. Suppressing his thoughts, Soichiro quickly reacted and responded with a light bow. Thank you for saving. Is there anything we can do to repay you? Seeing this reaction, Lorien's eyes flickered as he rolled his eyes inwardly. Old fox. Soichiro's reaction was nearly transparent to Lorien. After all, the difference in strength is still there, so it is impossible for Soichiro to hide his wariness from him. But even if he knew this, Lorien didn't expose him as there was no need to. I have created a base. And I am looking for survivors to populate it, want to join? Hearing this, Soichiro paused for a moment as he looked at the barrier surrounding them. He isn't asking, is he? If I were to refuse, he would probably just remove the barrier around us and even secretly help the zombies. We don't have much of a choice, not to mention that it isn't a bad option in the first place. From what I heard, the base they created has very complete faculties, an abundance of food, and there are no worries about security. Thinking of this, Soichiro didn't hesitate any longer as he gave off a defeated sigh and responded. We agree. Watching his reaction, Lorien could easily guess what he was thinking, so he rolled his eyes at him and said. You don't have to act like I am forcing you. Frankly, the reason I am inviting you is that I need someone to manage the base for me. You and your wife are perfect candidates, that's why I chose you. Hey! What? This time, Soichiro wasn't the only one to respond, as even his wife couldn't help but let out an exclamation. Of all the scenarios and reasons they thought of, this wasn't one of them. So. Settled now? Yes, but. The other survivors who are close by, right? Don't worry, we'll be taking them with us. Thank you. You're welcome. Settling everything, Lorien then finally turned his head to the zombies that were still trying to impact the barrier. But first, let's deal with this. Chapter 104, Return and Departure, V2.End. A couple of hours later. Back at the base, Lorien could be seen standing with around 70 people behind him. Those are the lucky ones who managed to survive after the zombies broke through the blockade. And next to him, 3 big chests could be seen floating around. The first is the one Lorien filled with mangas, comics, and some novels from the first store he encountered when he entered the Japanese territory. As for the other 2, they were filled with movies and novels he found in a couple of specialized stores that Lorien discovered on his way back to the base. Discovering those stores, Lorien immediately decided to check what they had inside, and luckily for him, he found a huge variety of movies and light novels. He was even fortunate enough to find DVD versions of the Final Destination franchise. Swish! Suddenly, a beam of scarlet light shot from the distance, instantly landing in front of them. You are back, said Saigei, who had just made it here. A couple of moments earlier, she felt a large number of people entering the base, and based on this, she quickly inferred that Lorien was back, so she made it here as quickly as she could. Hey? They are. She continued after looking at the people behind him. They are just survivors, but those 2 are the ones I spoke to you about. Responded Lorien while pointing to Soichiro and his wife. Are you talking about the ones you want to manage the base? Yes. Looking deeply at the 2 of them, Saigei scanned them for a moment before shrugging. I trust your choice. You've never been wrong anyways. Meanwhile, just as Saigei was scanning them, the couple was doing the same. So she's the other being Saya spoke about. For some reason, she feels very dangerous. Watching this from the side, Lorien suddenly clapped his hands together, attracting their attention. Clap! Everyone must be tired, I'll send you to your residences so you can rest. spoke Lorien to everyone present before looking straight at Soichiro and Yuriko. As for managing the base, I'll communicate further details with you tomorrow, you should just relax today. Saying this, he then waved his hand indicating that they should follow him. Thankfully, the apartment Lorien made at the beginning is enough to accommodate all of them and there is no shortage of food, so everything went smoothly. Step. 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 Taking them to their destination, Lorien then walked back to where Sagai was. Making it there, he found her standing in front of one of the chests looking curiously inside. They contain movies, novels, mangas, etc. He said, which startled Sagai as she didn't feel him approaching. You have to stop doing that. Ha 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 ha. Sorry about that. Rolling her eyes at him, her eyes then shone brightly as if remembering something. Did you bring the movie you told me about? Yes. Saying this, Lorien walked to the third chest, opened it, and took out 5 DVDs. That many? Let's go watch them. Okay, but before that, how did the past 3 days go? Oh, that. It was. And like that, 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. In that period of time, all Lorien did was just watch movies with Sagai, read mangas, and relax. After all, he was leaving soon and he wanted to get as much rest as he could before going to the next world. The only actual work he did in this time period is fixing the damage caused by the EMP to the base and introducing the base to Soichiro and Yuriko so they can start managing it. Speaking of managing the base, things went much smoother than Lorien expected, which is mostly thanks to the couple already having their own subordinates who came with them. Choosing them was truly the correct choice. Sitting on the couch, Lorien's eyes shone with a golden light as they peered into the distance. Clairvoyance. Finally. No more nukes, I can now leave this world without worry. Frankly, Lorien thought about staying here with Sagai, getting ownership of the world, and then leaving together. After all, planting dreams trees and exchanging dream energy from luck isn't the only way to achieve his goal. He could also receive luck by spreading breathing techniques, killing zombies, or even humans. But after thinking about it for a while, he quickly suppressed those thoughts as this will most likely affect the doom energy. I'll just come back later after she finishes absorbing it, I am not in a hurry anyways. I'll go to 1 or 2 worlds then I'll come back here. Standing up, Lorien stretched lazily as his eyes then slowly turned serious. It's time to leave. Thinking of this, he slowly made it to the backyard where Sagia was occurring practicing. Noticing his arrival, she quickly stopped and looked at him in puzzlement. I am leaving, said Lorien. Hearing this, her eyes widened and reluctance filled her face. Even though she knew that this was coming and she even took this decision with him, she still felt a bit unwilling. Now? Why don't stay for a couple more days? Hearing this, Lorien silently shook his head and responded. It's about time I leave, I'll be returning, I am not dying, you don't have to look at me like that. But... Here. Take this, said Lorien as he threw 8 light orbs toward her. Those are 4 seeds of immortality and 4 of ability in case you need them. Hearing this, she silently took and stored them before silently looking at Lorien again. Okay, it's time now, spoke Lorien as he stepped forward, hugged her, and then lowered his head, stealing her lips. This lasted for a while as both of them reluctantly separated. See you later. This is the last thing Lorien said as he waved his hand and disappeared from this world, blipping out of existence. Seeing this, Sagai lowered the hand she was waving as she gave off a long desolate sigh. She is no longer in the mood to practice. Sigh. Alone. Again. Volume 2, End. Chapter 105, Again in Nothingness. Silently disappearing from the high school of the dead world, Lorien appeared in nothingness. Looking around, everything looked the same as he previously remembered. The beautiful dotted sky, eerie silence, and the foreboding sense of doom as one looked at the unknown. Everything was the same. Being here, he felt a bit uncomfortable as he remembered his previous bad encounter. But after a moment, he shook this feeling off as he turned his attention to the world he had just exited. This world is small, even when compared to the Demon Slayer world, but its scarlet color gave a strange and dreadful feel to it. So this is what this world looks like from the outside. It's very small. But then, just as Lorien was observing his surroundings, the golden barrier surrounding him suddenly shook as it shot into the distance, turning into a golden beam of light illuminating the surrounding darkness. Looking around him, world after world passed by, some large, some small, some looked evil while others looked pure. Even though he had already experienced this scene once before, he still felt amazed. Which world will it be? Looking at the worlds around him, Lorien kept trying to guess which one he'll enter to pass the time. But he didn't have to do this for long, as the golden sphere he was sitting in suddenly changed its direction and moved toward a sizable silver-colored world in the distance. Seeing this, Lorien unconsciously released a sigh of relief as his face visibly relaxed. This should be my destination. Thankfully, nothing happened this time. I can't handle another surprise like the last one. This world looks much bigger than the previous ones I went to. I hope there are new things I can learn there. Just as Lorien's thoughts were turning, the golden barrier carrying him had already made it to the world barrier, also called the world's crystal wall. Puff! Pierce! The moment it touched it, this golden sphere went through it without a hitch. Not a single resistance was felt. It was like a knife through butter. Hey! By the time he was able to react, Lorien had already found himself in the middle of a crowded street. Ah! What? His abrupt appearance caused a commotion as those who were close to him started screaming in fright. Shit! Seeing this, he quickly reacted as he moved away from his spot at an incredible speed. Swish! In the eyes of those watching, one moment he was standing there, and the next, he disappeared. What happened? Asked a man curiously as he walked in their direction. He was a bit far away when everything happened, so he didn't know what had just transpired. I don't know. A man suddenly appeared out of thin air, but he quickly disappeared soon after. Responded a woman as she lowered her body to pick up the phone she had just dropped. Fuck! The screen is broken. She cursed under her breath. Seeing this, the man knew better than to continue talking to her, so he turned to one of the other people present. Are you guys sure? I don't know, maybe it was just an illusion. Maybe. Just as people were looking around, Lorien observed them from a distance with a speechless look on his face. This travel is truly random. This time I was thrown in the middle of a crowd of people, God knows where I'll be thrown next time. But looking at the barrier still around him, Lorien felt slightly better. At least I have this layer of protection. Shaking his head, Lorien then refocused his attention again on the crowd of people. What language are they speaking? I can't understand anything. It's not Japanese or English. Moreover, looking around, Lorien started silently observing his surroundings. Unmaintained and unkempt streets, old buildings, and those cars. Oh right. Cars. Remembering something, Lorien quickly turned his eyes to the license plate of one of the cars that passed by. Written on it were those exact numbers 74TN 1562. The word TN wasn't actually written in English or Japanese, they were actually written in Arabic. Even though he didn't speak the language, he could still recognize it, which is similar to how most people don't understand Chinese but can recognize it at a glance. So it's an Arabic-speaking country. Realizing this, Lorien didn't waste any time as he immediately began using his power to learn the language. Dream/reality, language. With his current strength, it is very easy for him to learn a language in an instant. It doesn't consume much of his energy reserves. Closing his eyes, Lorien silently digested the waves of information that kept appearing in his mind. His knowledge of this language went from 0 to 100 at an unbelievable speed. And it wasn't only that, as different dialects also appeared in his mind, which is very helpful. Without them, it would be very hard to understand anything as each region has its own dialect. Rubbing his temples, Lorien felt astonished. This is truly the vastest language he had ever learned so far. More than 12 million words. Truly insane. Shaking his head, he decided to throw those messy thoughts aside, as those minor details weren't that important. What he needs to do now is to gather as much information as possible to determine what world he is currently in, if he even knows it, that is. I need to find what world I am in before planning anything further. Determining this, Lorien made his way toward a small newspaper vendor nearby. Using his power, he made sure that no one was able to see him or discover his presence. Doing this, he took one of the newspapers and was about to start reading it, but as he did, he suddenly paused again as he discovered something unexpected which caused his mouth to twitch. Really? Why isn't the newspaper in Arabic? The newspaper Lorien is currently holding is written in Latin alphabet, so he isn't able to recognize it as easily as he did with Arabic. From what I could tell, it should be either French or Spanish. Not wanting to waste any more time, Lorien then started using his power again to learn both of them. Dream/reality, language. Closing his eyes for a couple of moments, Lorien then opened them again as a speechless look appeared on his face. Didn't know that this would be the day I go on a language learning spree. The more you know, I guess. Shaking his head, he finally turned his head again towards the newspaper. So it's French, hey? January 24, 2016. This is the date written on it. Moreover, after skimming through it, he was also able to determine where he currently was. So I'm currently in Tunisia, the most northern point of Africa, near Algeria and close to Italy. Determining his position, Lorien then placed the newspaper back and started walking away. A weird place to start. Moreover, what sort of supernatural powers there are? I am sure that they exist in this world considering its size. Hey! Suddenly, as if feeling something, Lorien turned his attention to one of the passerbys as a puzzled look appeared on his face. What is that? Note. The first 18 or so chapters of this volume will be in the JJK world, but not in Japan. I want to expand the world a bit, make the MC gain something from here, and then go and have fun with the story. I don't want him to be so focused on the gains as he did in the previous worlds, so he'll be getting a lot of it before starting the plot. I also want to test my writing a bit with it, so enjoy. And don't worry, he'll be going to Japan. Happy face. Chapter 106, Incoming Storm. With long black hair, lightly tanned skin, and green eyes, this passerby is currently wearing a semi-formal uniform composed of jeans, a white shirt, and a blazer. She was also carrying a black long bag on her back that somehow looked like it was part of the outfit. With a single glance, Lorien could tell that there was a sword inside. Moreover, it isn't a training sword or one that is made just for show. This is a true killing weapon, as he could clearly feel the bloody breath surrounding it. It appears that it was used quite recently. She must have been fighting. Shaking his head lightly, Lorien threw those thoughts aside, as it wasn't her looks or the weapon she carried that attracted his attention. It was actually the weird vibe surrounding her which Lorien couldn't put his finger on. This negative feeling. Very weird. So with all of those factors combined, Lorien immediately knew what to do, as he already has some experience in this field. Let's see what we got here. Using his power, he was instantly able to visibly observe all the auras around, and what he saw surprised him. Shrouding this woman, there was this weird, negative, black and blue-colored energy. Moreover, this energy wasn't only surrounding her, as Lorien could feel that it also existed inside of her body, flowing around. Seems like we are getting somewhere. I didn't have to search long before a supernatural being of this world appeared in front of me. I guess I am quite lucky, hey? Frankly, such a discovery isn't nearly enough to shock or even surprise Lorien, as he has somewhat gotten used to things like this. Now, rarely do such stuff startle or amaze him. But what is this energy? Observing his surroundings, Lorien could see that the same kind of energy that this woman had was present everywhere. It shrouded and existed not only inside of her but also inside every single person. It's just that the quantity and quality differ from one person to the other. Wait. That's not all. Focusing further, Lorien felt something wrong. It was as if he had overlooked something. So that's what it is. With a look of sudden realization, Lorien finally picked the difference between other people and the woman. It's the energy leaking. Different from those normal people around, the energy inside of the woman kept flowing inside of her with only a very small amount leaking, which is quite the contrast with other people whose energy kept leaking non-stop like an open faucet. Is it a problem with energy control? No. That's not it. Those people probably don't even know that they have such energy inside of them. But where is this energy going? It doesn't look like it's a good thing. Shaking his head, Lorien decided to put those thoughts aside and focus on this woman for now. After all, when he gets his hands on this world's complete practice system, he'll receive all the information he needs, so for now, he doesn't have to think much of it. I could just use my clairvoyance to do a quick scan of the huge future events to approximately determine what world this is. But that would be too boring. Moreover, God knows if I even know this world at all, so I should just gather information first. For now, I'll try to figure it out myself, that is at least before my protection period ends, as I'll be completely safe before then. So just before that happens, I'll just use my clairvoyance. Deciding on this, Lorien quickly started following this woman, as she has already walked some distance away while Lorien was thinking. Following her footsteps like a ghost, he was effectively walking shoulder to shoulder with her, but even then, she was still unable to detect his presence. This stalking continued for around 20 minutes until this woman finally reached what appears to be her destination. Entering the huge building toe-to-toe with her, Lorien could feel that he had just entered some sort of barrier. Is it created for defense or detection? Well, it doesn't matter much. Even though he had unconsciously entered it, Lorien didn't feel worried at all, as there was no way this barrier could detect his presence. Quite the opposite actually, as he felt quite happy knowing that he entered a somewhat important place. Smiling lightly, Lorien continued following her for a couple more moments, his eyes darting around as he did so. Observing the place, Lorien watched as some people passed by them, respectfully greeting the woman he was following. It seems the woman I am following is a big figure. Moreover, she appears to be quite strong compared to the ones I've seen in this place. Step. 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 Suddenly, just as they were approaching what seemed to be the center of this building, 4 people suddenly appeared. Feeling their presence, Lorien could tell that they were a bit strong, just a little weaker than the woman he is following. They were 3 men and a woman, all of them were wearing somewhat formal clothes and had serious looks on their faces. 2 of the men had black hair and eyes, the other had blonde hair and green eyes, while the woman had red hair and blue eyes. With their dress code and mature looks, they would have appeared majestic if it weren't for the anxious look on their faces. Sarah. How did it go? Spoke the leading man nervously. Oh, it was just a false alarm, it's just a first-grade cursed spirit. Responded the woman Lorien was following, who was apparently called Sarah. Huff. Hearing this, everyone present heaved a sigh of relief as the nervous look on their faces got swept away. But that only lasted for a moment, as the blonde-haired man spoke angrily. Damn it! Those cursed spirits are quickly growing in number, if it keeps going like this, we won't be able to stop them. Those words instantly caused the place to fall silent as everyone looked downcast. Seeing this, the red-haired woman finally spoke, her voice filled with helplessness. Nothing we can do about it, we lack the inheritance to train a large number of strong men, moreover, the birth of cursed spirits is very interlinked with the state of the world. Now that people are feeling desperate, it is the perfect time for special-grade cursed spirits to be born. I am afraid that we won't be able to handle the incoming storm. Meanwhile, just as they were talking, Lorien silently stood next to them, his eyes flickering with wisdom. I think I know which world this is. Chapter 107, Vigilance. Apparently guessing what world he was currently in, Lorien's eyes shone brightly with excitement, knowing how much this would help him if his guess was right. Unable to hold himself back, Lorien instantly threw away his playful attitude and stopped caring about the small game of figuring the world himself by investigating. Turning serious, Lorien looked into the distance as he activated his power, causing his golden eyes to shine lightly. Clairvoyance. With this ability operating, Lorien started manipulating it to observe some of the most important future events in Japan. After all, that's where the story he saw in his previous world transpired. Swish! In front of Lorien's eyes, scene after scene unfolded, showing him the future. From a young man called Yuta joining a sorcerer's school called Jujutsu High to another young man eating a finger which gave him both power and a curse and then joining the same school. A white-haired man suppressing all sorcerers just to be sealed in the end, and a massacre ensuing soon after. Seeing all of this, a grin silently appeared on Lorien's face as he suddenly burst out laughing, not caring about his surroundings. Ha 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 ha. Hey! Wah! Hearing a sudden wild laugh suddenly sounding next to them, the 5 people who were chatting immediately reacted, jumping back in fright. But their reaction didn't end there, as Sarah, the woman that Lorien was following, immediately attacked in his direction following the source of the noise, while the other 4 immediately followed her example and attacked with their own techniques. Blood chain technique. Green and yellow. Puncture. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. With a billow of smoke appearing as a consequence, the 5 people still kept their vigilance, attentively observing their surroundings. Swish! Suddenly, from the center of the smoke, right where their attacks had just landed, a small humming noise suddenly sounded. Then, as if removed with an eraser, the smoke present was silently wiped out from existence, revealing a silver-haired young man standing in place with a speechless look on his face. I got too excited, I forgot to cancel the noise. Well, it doesn't matter much now, I already got what I came here for anyways. Moreover, I can now chat with them and get more information. I should be able to easily gain access to this world's power system. But, I should talk to them first. Deciding on this, a gentle smile appeared on Lorien's face as he spoke lightly. Hello. Even though Lorien had a friendly attitude, those present were still feeling vigilant towards him. After all, his looks were a bit exotic even in this world, especially his golden eyes. Moreover, even though he stood right in front of them, they were still not able to detect his presence, they are only able to observe him using the naked eye. This is of course very uncomfortable for those sorcerers who are used to detecting people using cursed energy. "Who are you?" spoke the blonde-haired man with a serious look on his face as his muscles tensed ready to defend at any moment. This is the same for his teammates who silently moved into a small formation so they can better defend against him in case he sneaks attack them. Seeing their reaction, Lorien gave off a long sigh full of exhaustion as he almost face-palmed. "Well, this is to be expected, I guess." Shaking his head, Lorien spoke again, but this time his voice was rather calm, it can even be called indifferent. "Worry not. I am a human. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it long ago. But hey, I guess I have to prove it, otherwise, I don't think that we'll be able to chat." Saying this, Lorien abruptly disappeared from his location, appearing right in the middle of their formation. This happened so quickly that none of them were able to react. Their eyes and brains registered his presence, but their bodies are just not able to move that fast to react. But that didn't matter either, as the moment they tried using their curse energy and techniques to attack this intruder, something unbelievable happened which caused their eyes to shrink in fright. What's happening? To their terror, they suddenly discovered that they were not able to mobilize the energy inside of their body. No, not just their energy, even their bodies felt as if they were stuck in quicksand. Tapping the shoulder of one of them, Lorien then disappeared again, reappearing in his previous location while also lifting the restriction he placed on them. "Can we talk now?" Feeling helpless, a rather calm-looking man nodded reluctantly as the others were still trying to figure out what was happening. "It's not like he has any other choice anyways. How can we help you?" "Well, let's talk, I have a lot to ask." A while later, Lorien could be seen sitting in a conference room with the 5 people in front of him. Holding a small cup of tea, he took small sips as he silently listened to them. From the information he gathered from them, Lorien was able to gain a basic understanding of the reality of this world. Things are never simple, are they? Well, I expected this world to be much more complex than what I've seen in the story, but I didn't expect the situation to be this chaotic. The story in Japan is only the tip of the iceberg. But, I do have a guess about what's going on and the reason why cursed spirits and sorcerers keep getting stronger year by year. However, I still have to gather more information to make sure. Seeing Lorien lowering his head and falling into deep thought, the other people present in this meeting room decided to follow suit as each of them drifted into their own worlds. He doesn't appear to know much about the basic knowledge of the world, yet, he has deep knowledge about those complex things. He isn't malicious, otherwise, he would have easily killed us there. Moreover, he also isn't a cursed spirit, as the technique we set here using heavenly restrictions would have alerted us. Giving him a deep look, Sarah couldn't help but feel a bit curious. Who exactly is he? Note: a lot of OC characters will be introduced by they won't remain long in the story, unless something happens and changes my mind. I will also be using this part of the story to write all the information I want to convey, so that when I get to the true JJK part I will only write the pure story/plot. Anyways, you can find the next chapter 108 free on Patreon, go check it out there. Chapter 108, Trade. Not caring about their eyes, Lorien raised his head slowly and said as a small grin slowly surfaced on his face. "How about we make a deal?" Seeing this, the other people present instantly became vigilant. It really felt as if he was up to no good. What is he planning? Observing their reaction, Lorien instantly guessed what they were thinking, which caused him to feel a bit speechless. Why are they looking at me like this? I really mean no harm. Quite the opposite, it's a win-win kind of deal. And as the parrot said, have faith in Lord Fifth, gain eternal life. When Lord Fifth appears, who dares to cause strife? With me as their boss, not only will they gain power but no danger shall appear. Finishing this small rant in his heart, Lorien smiled bitterly, feeling quite helpless. But even then, he still explained, trying to convince them with logic, preferring not to resort to other tactics. Cursed spirits are growing quickly in strength and numbers, and it appears that you guys won't be able to handle the incoming storm. Soon, this place will turn into a dumpster fire. Seeing that they were still paying attention, Lorien nodded silently as he continued talking. Your main issue isn't actually the lack of talents, rather, it seems that you lack the inheritance and techniques to help those talents reach their full potential. Previous wars and accidents in the region caused your heritage to break, so you are now almost starting from zero and most of your strong techniques are self-made by different geniuses. As he said this, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but drift toward Sarah, the woman he was previously following. After all, she is one such example. Actually, the situation Lorien has just spoken of isn't as rare as one may think. Many countries are currently facing this same issue, with only a few such as Japan, China, and some other old European nations still possessing a relatively complete heritage. This is not time for this. Suppressing those messy thoughts, Lorien continued speaking. You could probably use heavenly restrictions to try and creatively push your way through those hard times, but that is far from a long-term solution and you'll be overwhelmed sooner or later. Hearing this, the golden-haired man, who appears to be the most irritable gut in their group, finally couldn't help but retort in a muffled voice. What are you trying to get at? Hey! Getting interrupted so abruptly, Lorien stopped speaking as a frown appeared on his face before turning his head toward the guy who had just spoken. So it's him again. Meanwhile, seeing Lorien turn his eyes toward him, the man instantly reacted quickly, sitting back as if nothing had happened. He still remembers their fight a while ago. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but roll his eyes, deciding not to care about him for now, as he then continued speaking as if nothing had happened. I can provide you with the heritage you lack. And also minimum protection when I am there in case you meet an unsolvable opponent. And what is it for you? Questioned the red-haired woman vigilantly. She didn't doubt his ability to deliver on his promise, nor was there a reason to. After all they need to do is wait to verify if he spoke the truth. I currently lack subordinates, and your organization just happens to fit the bill. The moment Lorien said this, the first to react were the golden-haired man and another black-haired one who was sitting next to him. What? Impossible. We disagree. Hearing this, Lorien frowned again. This is the second time he got interrupted, so even though he has a relatively gentle personality, he still got a bit annoyed. Turning his eyes toward them, this immediately caused them to shrink back and turn quiet as an ugly look appeared on the two men's faces. This is because the moment he looked at them, the two men felt restricted. They suddenly lost the ability to manipulate their cursed energy as their bodies froze. This is an obvious and clear warning. Of course, not all the people present here were as reckless as those two, especially knowing the strength difference between them, not to mention that this may really be an opportunity. If we were to become your subordinates, what kind of orders will you give us? Said the leader, who had been keeping silent most of the time. He knew that there was hardly any way they could refuse this offer. He didn't know anything about Lorien, so he didn't know how his reaction will be if they were to refuse him. Will he let them go? Or will he kill everyone here? He really couldn't use the lives of everyone to make such a bet, especially with the world's current chaotic situation. After all, on the off chance that every powerhouse here were to be killed, cursed spirits will gain the absolute advantage and will become free to do anything they want. That'll be the end of humanity, at least for this country. But even if he knew that he most likely couldn't refuse, the man still had to ask. After all, if the orders they were going to take is to kill humans, then there is no reason to hesitate any longer. Everyone here will choose to fight to the death. Seeing the serious and crazy look in the man's eyes, Lorien immediately guessed what he was thinking, so he quickly said, "Do I look evil to you? I am also a human. I wouldn't give such an order. If I wanted to kill humans, I would have done it myself long ago. Why choose such a roundabout way?" Hearing this, the black-haired leader visibly relaxed, but even then, he still didn't give a response as he kept hesitantly opening his mouth and closing, not knowing what to say. This lasted for a while until he finally spoke in a low tone of voice. "Could you give us some time to think? The five of us can't make such a decision on our own, some of our executive members are still missing." Hearing this, Lorien fell silent for a moment before responding. 24 hours. Lorien wasn't afraid of them doing anything or preparing any traps in this period of time. After all, even on the off chance that they had some crazy backup, the golden barrier surrounding him was still present, which could fully assure his protection as long as it exists. Hearing Lorien's answer, the man felt a bit surprised as he didn't expect him to agree so refreshingly. But he knew that it wasn't time for this, so he quickly suppressed his surprise and responded, "Thank you." Even though 24 hours weren't a lot of time, it could still allow them to talk and plan their next course of action, be it agreeing or disagreeing and planning for the worst. Nodding lightly in response, Lorien then stood up and gave them a deep look as he said, "I'll be back tomorrow." As Lorien spoke, his voice echoed lightly in the conference room, sounding like a whisper, and before anyone could react, they suddenly discovered that he had disappeared from his position, leaving behind an lightly spinning empty seat. Chapter 109, Government. Seeing Lorien disappear, the 5 people left in the conference room looked silently at each other for a moment before lowering their heads. It was unknown what they were thinking. Some of them looked calm while others looked angry, especially the blonde man as his facial expressions kept twisting in rage. All of this happened under the watchful and helpless eyes of the leader who, after observing them for a moment, took out his phone and started dialing some numbers. "Come back HQ. We have an emergency. Leave whatever you have there and come back. We don't have much time." "Yes. Now." After repeating this a couple more times, the man then collapsed back into the chair, his head turning toward the ceiling. "What should we do?" said he after a moment of pause, his voice filled with exhaustion. Meanwhile, in a very remote place, a short-haired woman could be seen standing lazily in the middle of a crater. Around her, nothing looked intact. The earth was cracked and full of craters, the trees and greenery were destroyed, and dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Based on the traces around, it was clear that some sort of battle had happened here a while ago. Standing there, this woman made a huge contrast compared to the surroundings, as she was wearing what looked to be a comfy hoodie and sweatpants. Those comfy clothes looked very weird in this environment. But all of this didn't appear to affect the woman standing there, as she didn't seem to care. After all, she is the one who caused all of this damage. Beep. Hang up. Looking at the phone in her hand, the woman's lazy expression quickly turned to a fully serious one. "What happened? I didn't hear about any strong cursed spirits being born. Moreover, they don't usually call me unless it's something they absolutely can't handle." Straightening the delicate-looking glasses she was wearing, the woman then placed the phone back into her pocket. "I'll have to find out myself, I guess." Step. 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 Walking away slowly, the sound of her footsteps echoed lightly in this desolate place before disappearing soon after. If Lorien were here, he would have been very interested in this woman. After all, compared to the 5 he met in the Sorcerer's HQ, she is much stronger. If the woman Lorien previously followed was approaching the special grade level, then this woman has absolutely reached it. She is actually the only special grade sorcerer in this country. Of course, Lorien didn't have any idea about this, nor did he care, as he was currently walking around the streets enjoying himself. It's been a long time since he's been in a fully functional modern setting. The first world he went to was an ancient world, and the last one is an apocalyptic world. So just holding a Coke bottle and walking around gave him a great sense of calmness and joy. Even the bustling and noisy city around him couldn't affect his mood. Ah, yes. It's this familiar feeling, I really miss it. That's something that I never thought that I'll say in my life, but here we are. Life truly is unpredictable. Taking one last sip, Lorien then crushed the Coke bottle in his hand as he then made it disappear, completely erasing it from existence. Save the planet, say no to global warming. Cough. I really have to stop drifting to random topics. But hey, it is really surprising that this sorcerer's organization has no relationship with the government, or at least it isn't a hierarchical one. It's almost an equal business relationship. I thought that I'll have to clash a bit with the government here to take them under control, but it seems that there is no need for that now. I really hate politicians. Shaking his head, Lorien smiled amusedly for a moment as his expression then slowly turned serious. Enough of this, it's time for business. I need to find a cursed spirit and a sorcerer to experiment on, as I have to verify my guess. If it is true, then gaining ownership of this world will be quite easy. Deciding on this, Lorien didn't waste any more time as he quickly started using his clairvoyance while limiting its range to the city he is in. Jackpot! There is a weak cursed spirit close by, and there is also this rogue sorcerer hidden in this city. Guess I am still lucky. Finding his targets, Lorien immediately disappeared from his position, not wasting a single moment. Swish! I really wonder how or will my source energy get affected after analyzing the cursed energy in this world. Also, can I use the techniques in this world without that energy? A lot of questions to be answered. Making his way toward his destination, Lorien's thoughts kept racing as he kept thinking about all the possible scenarios. This lasted for a while before Lorien forcefully pushed those thoughts away. There is no need to think about it now, I'll know the answer in a while. Moreover, I have already reached my destination. As he said this, Lorien stopped his movement as he then looked speechlessly at the abandoned house in front of him. This house looked like it was abandoned for years, its owner stopping in the middle of the construction process for mysterious reasons. The house had no doors or windows, and its walls were made of concrete with vulgar graphics and some tags all over them. We can also see some needles and glass bottles showing that this house was used for other illegal activities. But it is really unknown if whoever entered here has left alive. Really? Can't you be a bit more creative? But, this is to be expected. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't even bother about this anymore as he quickly made it inside. It looked smaller from the outside. Suddenly feeling some energy waves, Lorien lowered his head looking directly below him. So it also has a cellar. Seeing this, he basically determined where this cursed spirit was, so without further ado, he made his way toward it. Hope that I can gain something. Chapter 110, Cursed Energy. Dreeeeeab. 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 Echoing is the rhythmic sound of small droplets hitting the ground below. If taken alone, this sound felt serene, calming, and hypnotizing, but in this dark, run-down, and secluded environment, it only made the atmosphere creepier. Moreover, the roars and screaming that sounded nearby weren't of any help. Ruoar. Let me hoot. Ack. Looking at the origin of these noises, one could see two humanoid creatures chained in place with multicolored chains made of energy. One of the two chained creatures barely had a human shape, its body green in color and greatly deformed. It kept roaring like a rabid beast but to no avail. As for the other creature, it is actually a human. Yes. A human, it wasn't a monster or anything like that. Asuali. Why did you bring me here? Shouting with all his strength, the man tried to release all his frustration. After all, he really didn't know why he was caught. One moment he was walking on the street getting ready for his operation, and the next, a silver-haired man appeared in front of him catching him without saying a single word. Let me go. But then, just as the man roared, the distinct noise of fingers snapping sounded in this empty place. Snap. This noise echoed lightly yet clearly, miraculously overshadowing all other noises in the surroundings. Moreover, following its propagation, everything suddenly went silent, there were no longer any screams. Even the sound of water droplets hitting the small pond of water below disappeared. But this silence didn't last long as moments later, a somewhat irritated voice sounded. Ah! Finally! No more noise! I nearly got a headache because of you. Step! 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 Walking from the shadows is a silver-haired young man with golden eyes wearing a comfy-looking hoodie. This is exactly Lorien. Well, you two should be enough for my experiment. Hearing this, the chained man opened his mouth to scream in rejection but sadly, no sound came out. Of course, Lorien didn't care about his response. After all, those two are only experimental subjects for him, just lab rats. The first creature is actually the cursed spirit Lorien found in the cellar. After meeting it, Lorien immediately chained it in place. The second is a curse user, basically, an evil human sorcerer who uses jujutsu with malintent, and in this case, it is robbery, rape, and murder to name just a few of the things he committed. I should be able to analyze cursed energy from them and the difference between cursed spirits and human sorcerers. I hope that I can use cursed techniques and domain expansion without it, at least I want to emulate this energy or absorb its characteristics. I really wonder how my source energy will react if I were to absorb cursed energy. Will it mutate or not? Indeed, ever since Lorien came to this world, he has been feeling very greedy for this power as it is very versatile and compatible with his reality warping and dream power, especially domain expansion. I'll give it a try after analyzing it. I don't want to jump the gun here. Gather information, then, act. Oh, I should also be able to verify my theory. Thinking of this, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer as he immediately started using his power to analyze the two in front of him. Dream/reality, analyze. With his ability operating, detailed, clear, and easy to understand information started appearing in Lorien's mind. And because Lorien's focus was totally centered on cursed energy, most of the information he got was about it. This lasted for about an hour until Lorien finally took back his power as he felt his energy levels dwindling. So that's how it is. Even though Lorien's source energy levels almost reached rock bottom, he was still able to achieve his goal. So my guess was correct. All I need to do is test it. But it's not time for this, as before that. Stopping this line of thought, Lorien silently turned his attention to the chained man. Cursed energy is made of negative emotions, be it anger, emptiness, frustration, helplessness, fear, guilt, or loneliness. All of them are included. I now know for sure how it is made, and its essence. I also know how cursed spirits are born and why. All that is left is just to absorb some of it and see how my source energy reacts. According to the data, nothing wrong should happen, at least I hope so. Gritting his teeth, Lorien walked slowly toward the chained man. This is the first time he ever tried something like this, so he isn't sure about how things will go. But thinking about the golden barrier still surrounding him, his eyes turned resolute. It's better to try it when he still has this layer of protection, at least with it, he knows that things will never truly hit the fan. So it's decided. No longer hesitating, Lorien placed his hand on the man who was chained from all four limbs and neck. D/R, erase. With Lorien's power operating, the man instantly disappeared from this world, it was as if he was never there. But that isn't completely correct, as in the position he was in some blackish energy was still left there. Of course, this is exactly what Lorien wanted, as he took extra care to not erase it with him. Cursed energy. Seeing this, Lorien didn't pause as he instantly used his power to lock it in place before it could disappear into the world. D/R, collect and seal. And as a consequence, this energy was immediately compressed into a small ping-pong-sized black ball. Got it. Holding it in his hand, Lorien could feel the glass-like texture of the ball and its cold temperature. Completing all of those actions in quick succession, Lorien paused for a moment as he took in a deep breath. It's now or never. Holding this ball tightly, Lorien didn't hesitate as he started absorbing it into his body. How will my source energy react? Chapter 111, Digestion. Absorbing this compressed ball of cursed energy, it didn't take long for it to completely disappear and merge into Lorien's body. The quantity is much smaller than I anticipated. I hope that it'll be enough. The moment this foreign and new energy made its appearance inside his body, the source energy dormant there immediately reacted as it instantly encircled this intruder. Surrounding it like a pack of starved wolves, it immediately attacked, and in a fraction of a second, the cursed energy got torn apart, broken down, and then absorbed as nourishment. The two energies were clearly on two completely different levels, there was no way to compare the two of them. Seeing this, Lorien's mouth couldn't help but twitch, he really felt a bit speechless. Really violent, but I half expected this. When this happened, Lorien could clearly feel that his source energy slightly increased, which was of course very normal. After all, his energy could basically improve after absorbing anything. Not to mention energy, even absorbing rocks or stones would allow him to improve. As long as it exists, he can absorb it. It's just that by doing so, Lorien puts himself in a bad position with the world, which is exactly what is happening now. After absorbing that small amount of cursed energy, Lorien could feel luck falling on him. This feeling is very familiar to Lorien, as in the two past worlds, he has been trying to collect it with all his wit and strength. It's just that this time, it is different, as this luck isn't positive as usual, it is negative. It felt very similar to the curses Sagai usually throws at people, but just of higher quality. Thankfully though, the amount is very small, not to mention that it was blocked before reaching him by the golden barrier around him. Sigh. The moment this barrier disappears, that luck will latch into me again. I hope that it is worth it. Shaking his head, Lorien threw those distracting thoughts aside as he started seriously analyzing the changes in his source energy. Dream/reality, analyze. Using his ability to help himself analyze and observe, Lorien quickly determined the result as a joyful smile appeared on his face. Ha ha ha. It went better than I expected. According to the observation he just made using his power, the source energy inside of his body has indeed slightly mutated. In the process of devouring the condensed ball of cursed energy, it appears that his source energy has absorbed the advantages and characteristics of cursed energy and discarded any and all drawbacks and disadvantages. Meaning, now, Lorien could use his source energy to practice and do anything that cursed energy is able to, such as learning cursed techniques and domain expansion or setting up heavenly restrictions. All of this without having to worry about any drawbacks and limitations that may be existent with cursed energy, such as its negative aspect or its dependence on this world to make restrictions. Speaking of negative aspects, getting those characteristics wasn't the only thing that the source energy inside of Lorien gained, as another aspect was added to it. And that aspect is precisely the negative aspect and characteristic of cursed energy. Previously, the source energy inside of Lorien was relatively positive without any dark factors, but now after absorbing cursed energy this aspect was added. This isn't bad actually, as some may think, quite the opposite actually, as now his energy and power are more complete. A perfect balance between positive and negative power and completely keeping its neutral state. This is the current state of Lorien's source energy. This of course allows Lorien to do things he previously couldn't do at all. For example, nightmare creation. Previously, when creating a nightmare, Lorien has to personally set up the content and imagine what that person may fear while trying to keep as realistic as possible. But now, Lorien doesn't have to do any of that, as all he needs to do now is just use his power to create a nightmare and the true fears of the target will just manifest themselves on their own. Moreover, things don't end there. The most important gain isn't actually that. It's the ability to give birth to true creatures from those nightmares like cursed spirits. Yes, that is right, Lorien is now theoretically able to mass-produce cursed spirits, moreover, he is able to approximately control their ability, characteristics, and even personality. After all, those creatures will be born from his power so he'll easily be able to manipulate such things, it's just that for the birth of one such cursed spirit, or as Lorien will call them nightmare spirit, the nightmares and dreams of at least a city is required to create a strong one. Determining this, Lorien finally couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. This is really unexpected. If I had previously known this, I wouldn't have bothered talking to the guys previously. But shaking his head, Lorien quickly dismissed this thought. Never mind, the human sorcerers are much more convenient to communicate with and use in normal situations. They'll also be able to provide me with an official identity which will make life much easier. Now with one of the questions that had always lingered in Lorien's mind answered, he could finally relax a bit. Now when entering another world, I can just absorb the energy there without worrying as I did now. It seems like I really don't have to worry about indigestion or anything like that. Ah ha 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 ha. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't bother thinking about this anymore as he started thinking about his next steps. Tomorrow, I'll go talk to the human sorcerers, if they agree then everything will be easy. If not, I'll just take some of the inheritances they have and go somewhere else, it's not like I am the one losing here. Anyways, once I get curse techniques and analyze them, I can immediately start studying domain expansion. But before that, stopping here, Lorien turned his eyes toward the chained cursed spirit. It's time to truly determine if my guess is correct. If that is indeed the case, then my journey in this world will be quite easy. Cough. Let's start then. Chapter 112, Purified Energy. Walking toward the chained cursed spirit, the ring worn on Lorien's finger suddenly turned into a sword which he immediately held in his hand. As for the sheath, it silently appeared on his waist. Observing the golden blade engraved with pitch-black runes, Lorien looked at his reflection as his thoughts unconsciously drifting away. The sword has immortal slaying characteristics, but I have only tested them on the demons from the Demon Slayer world. Even though I have been feeding the weapon source energy daily, I don't know if it has evolved enough to affect energy-based creatures such as cursed spirits. Shaking his head, Lorien decided not to bother thinking much of it or hypothesizing about it, as the best way to determine such things is to test it. Swish! Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate for a moment as he then immediately slashed toward the cursed spirit, aiming for its chest. Puff! Asterisk slat! Asterisk! As a result, green blood started gushing out from the wound, splashing in all directions. Looking at this green blood splashing toward him, clear disgust appeared on Lorien's face as he immediately erased it using his power. Moreover, as this blood started spreading around and dirtying the surroundings, it also got erased by some sort of invisible power. Tisk, I think that I need to take a shower. Rolling his eyes, Lorien took a step back and then kept observing the injury he caused. Seeing that the wound showed no signs of closing, a light smile appeared on his face as he lowered his head and looked at the weapon in his hand. A bit unexpected, it seems that it is now effective even for cursed spirits. This is a huge improvement from its previous effect of only suppressing the regeneration of low-level demons. Oh right. There is also the sheath. Remembering this, Lorien's eyes slowly drifted to the scabbard that he hung on his waist. Placing his left hand on it, he then curiously tried activating its power. Instantly, under Lorien's surprised eyes, a small multicolored barrier appeared covering him inside. Observing it for a moment, he then lifted his hand from the scabbard and stopped its power. Its main ability, Eternal Dreamland, is finally active. It is no longer just a seed. Its ability is to create a dream domain around me, completely isolating and protecting me from the outside world. This ability is really similar to domain expansion in some ways. I really wonder if domain expansion can be used like this. It may be quite useful in the future. Cough. Realizing that he had once again started daydreaming, Lorien coughed lightly as he forcefully threw aside those thoughts, his eyes then finally turning serious. Dream/reality, observe and analyze. Activating his ability, Lorien then raised his sword up high, aiming at the cursed spirit in front of him, who kept shaking and tugging at the chains trying to free itself. Guess it's time to end it. Swish! Following the sound of the sword piercing the air, a golden trail of sword light was left behind as the chained cursed spirit instantly ceased all movement. Following its abrupt stop, a bloodline made of green blood silently appeared, dividing the cursed spirit's body into two distinct halves. Splash! This line only appeared for a moment before those two sides completely separated, falling lifelessly to the ground. Boom! Watching this, Lorien silently erased the chains that has now lost their mission as he continued observing the corpse in front of him. This is the moment he has been long waiting for, and it seems that he didn't have to wait long, as quick enough, something happened that caused his eyes to shine. Ha 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 ha! So that's how it is. It's as I have guessed. In Lorien's vision, he could see that after killing this cursed spirit, the energy inside of it got somehow purified and transformed into another kind of energy. This new energy transformed from the cursed energy of this cursed spirit is completely clean. All the negative energy and pollution that it previously had are nowhere to be seen, as all that is left is pure neutral energy. Following its birth, this energy only stayed put for a fraction of a second before it then immediately exited the cursed spirit's dead body, just to get instantly absorbed by the world. The moment this happened, Lorien could also feel luck falling on him, which instantly counteracted the previous negative luck he had acquired after previously absorbing cursed energy, making him return to a balanced and neutral state. Feeling this, Lorien's smile grew wider as he knew that his guess was correct. It is indeed as I have guessed. This world is really smart. It is basically using both human sorcerers and cursed spirits as energy purifiers. This could also explain the reason why even with such a negative power system this world is doing so well. The cursed energy in this world is similar to Lorien's dream energy. It is born from every creature and could act as a durable and long-term way to improve the world's strength. Just as Lorien can feed the world dream energy so it could grow, this world can also feed itself cursed energy. It's just that there is a very fundamental difference between them, and that is their nature. Lorien's dream energy is neutral if not positive, as for cursed energy it is 100% negative. Even though absorbing energy is fundamental for a world's growth, a world can't just absorb any kind of energy, for example, the negative energy present in this world. Of course, this is only the case for a positive/neutral world, but other worlds such as the Abyss for example won't care about such things at all. Food is food for them. But it seems that this world isn't such a foodie, as it is pickier about its food, deciding not to absorb such energy as it may lead to a lot of issues such as an apocalypse starting or the world collapsing. But, will this world let such a direct and easy way of improvement be neglected and left off? The answer is clearly no. And it is here where cursed spirits and jujutsu sorcerers come into play. Chapter 113, World Truth. Cursed Spirit. They are creatures born from the negative energy present everywhere thanks to the guidance of the world itself. Made of cursed energy, those spirits contain all the negative emotions of a certain aspect. For example, if a cursed spirit is born from the fear of a certain volcano, then, that cursed spirit will contain all the negative emotions about that volcano. This includes fear, worry, or any other emotion. As for jujutsu sorcerers, they are humans born with the innate ability to use cursed techniques and manipulate cursed energy. This profession is mostly hereditary, but there are of course exceptions with normal people becoming sorcerers. This happens very early on, as sorcerers are either born with or naturally develop their cursed techniques at the age of 4 or 5 years old. Of course, it may be possible to teach a normal human to become a jujutsu sorcerer, as even they can be taught how to manipulate cursed energy. It's just that their talent may not be up to par with those with innate strength and abilities. But what does all of this have to do with the world's plan? Well, everything. Pitting those two opposing sides against each other, a ritual of sorts is set, allowing the creation of positive energy following the death of either human sorcerers or cursed spirits in battle. When that happens, their negative energy turns positive and then gets absorbed by the world, further strengthening it. But this poses a bigger question. What does killing each other has to do with transforming negative energy into positive energy? This actually has something to do with the nature of cursed energy itself. It is a well-established fact in this world that cursed energy, negative energy, can turn into positive energy by simply taking two sources of cursed energy and multiplying them with one other. As a result, the energy that destroys becomes energy that creates, and negative energy becomes positive. This is known as reverse curse technique. It's just that despite sounding easy, this is something very hard and complex to do for most jujutsu sorcerers. Jujutsu sorcerers use this technique for various purposes but most commonly for healing. Cursed energy comes from negative emotions, which are unfit for healing living things, which is contrary to cursed spirits that are made up of cursed energy and don't require a reverse curse technique to heal. Cursed spirits are vulnerable to reverse cursed energy as the positive energy can compromise the integrity of their cursed energy-based bodies. When reverse cursed energy is blasted directly into a curse, it compromises its body structure and causes them to disintegrate. But things don't end here, as when this positive energy is used to power a cursed technique, the effects of said technique get reversed. For example, if a technique's ability is to pull a target, if used with positive energy powering it, then its ability will become pushing a target. From this alone one can see that this energy is literally the polar opposite of cursed energy. Moreover, this positive energy is something that the world likes and is willing to absorb, as it won't have any adverse effects on it. But there is just a little issue with that, and it's that all of this is temporary, as after the jujutsu sorcerer stops manipulating it, it reverts back to normal negative cursed energy. So what did the world do about it? Just a simple equation. Cursed spirit equals negative energy. Jujutsu sorcerer equals negative energy. Negative energy x negative energy equals positive energy. Conclusion. Cursed spirit x jujutsu sorcerer equals positive energy. And that is exactly what the world did. It simply allowed cursed spirits and jujutsu sorcerers to fight and kill each other, and all it has to do is just absorb energy in peace. Moreover, different from the temporary transformation made thanks to the manipulation of sorcerers, this transformation after death is permanent and comprehensive, fully transforming the negative energy into absorbable positive energy for the world. This would also explain the reason why each generation of cursed spirits and human sorcerers is stronger than the last one. This is mainly caused by the increase of negative energy thanks to modern society and the growth of the world itself pushing for the growth of its creatures. This has been happening since ancient times, with each generation growing stronger and stronger just to then feed the world with their death. Actually, the only thing the world has been doing is actually keeping a balance of sorts between sorcerers and cursed spirits, not allowing any of them to overwhelm the other party. But it just seems that this balance is still somewhat in favor of humans, with the world still preferring them over cursed spirits. This could be seen from the limitation that the world has set on the birth of cursed spirits. Indeed, a limitation. After reaching this world and seriously analyzing the power system for the first time, Lorien has always felt a bit weird, as the cursed spirits aren't as strong as they theoretically should be. Negative emotions are everywhere, especially fear. Technically, there should be some very strong cursed spirits born from the fears of war, famine, aging, time, and most importantly, the unknown. But as far as Lorien could tell, none of those cursed spirits exist. And not only that, all the current cursed spirits are born from limited fear in a limited range. For example, you can find a cursed spirit born from the fear of a specific volcano, but you can't find a cursed spirit born from the fear of all volcanoes in the world, or one born from the fear and worry about climate change. Even the strongest cursed spirits are just those born from myths or certain concepts in a limited range. It is as if something is restricting their birth and not allowing the inception of super strong creatures. And not only that, it is also pushing for the birth of strong humans, with Satoru Gojo being a prime example. It's just that this may change soon enough. After all, now that there are a lot of cursed spirits, it is time for harvest. And what better way is there other than a war between cursed spirits and jujutsu sorcerers? Thinking of this, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly, as even without using his power he could tell what was going to happen. War is coming, the balance will soon be broken. Chapter 114, Conference Table. This doesn't seem to matter much to me though. Shaking his head, the serious look in Lorien's eyes instantly faded away. Although he knew that a war was coming, he didn't care much about it. After all, he is neither a cursed spirit nor a jujutsu sorcerer. Hell, I am not even a native of this world. Considering this, he immediately started thinking of ways to use the information he had just gotten for his own benefits. It seems that I am not limited to planting dream trees to gain luck in this world. I could probably use some other strategies. Lowering his head, Lorien started brainstorming as he thought of other options. I could try and make the dream tree transform negative energy on its own, making it act as a filter for the world. That would surely get me luck. I could also try and improve this world's power system, making it not as much reliant on talent while also giving normal people a chance. There is also the brute force way of killing cursed spirits and sorcerers. Oh, speaking of killing cursed spirits, if I make that organization my subordinates, is it possible to make it so that whenever its members kill cursed spirits I get luck? That would be of great use to me. It's just that I can't think of any way to make that happen. Sigh. This is all I can think of right now. Getting no new ideas, Lorien scratched his head feeling a bit helpless. Well, those should be enough for now. Decisively giving up, he stretched lazily as his eyes wandered around the now empty cellar. I should get out of here and find somewhere to pass the night. Oh right, this is a modern world and I don't have any credentials. Face palming, only now did Lorien remember this issue. After all, he didn't need them in the last 2 worlds he traveled to. It seems that getting control of this organization will be much more useful than I initially thought. If nothing, a lot of the miscellaneous things could be solved easily. Shaking his head, Lorien pushed those thoughts aside as he then started making his way out of this place. I'll ask them for papers tomorrow, what is important now is to find somewhere to sleep. Step. 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 I'll just crash somewhere tonight. The next day. In a conference room, 7 people could be seen sitting at a round table in a semicircle with the opposite side being empty. Are those guys really leaving? Yeah, they couldn't take it, they said that they will never be members of someone's personal organization. Something fishy is going on. I agree. I just hope that they won't do anything crazy, otherwise we'll be enemies. Sigh. Then, just as they were chatting, the short-haired woman who was wearing delicate-looking glasses and comfy clothes finally spoke as she stretched lazily, a yawn exiting her mouth. Yawn. Sorry to interrupt, but when is the guy you spoke of coming? Saying this, a look of interest flashed in her eyes. As the only special grade sorcerer in the country, she has a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, it's just that she has a weird personality. Finally something interesting. I really wonder if he is as strong as they said. I mean if he was just at the level of a special grade the leader's reaction wouldn't have been like this as he would have tried fighting back or setting a trap. This means that everyone thinks that there is no way to stop him. But this may also have something to do with the things he promised. Ha ha ha, interesting, very interesting. Giggling happily, the girl completely ignored everyone around her, completely engrossed in her own world. Seeing this, the leader rolled his eyes angrily with a helpless look on his face. If you pose a question, at least wait for the answer before ignoring us. But then, just as he was about to answer her, a voice suddenly sounded in the room, instantly startling everyone present. I am here. Hearing the voice coming from the opposite side of the table, everyone's eyes collectively shrank as they immediately turned their heads toward the source. There, a silver-haired man could be seen sitting comfortably on a chair with a lazy look on his face. It is unknown how or when he appeared, as even the strongest here couldn't detect his presence. Well, look what we have here. Looking around, Lorien observed everyone present. He instantly recognized most of the people here from the day before, but there were still some new faces. The black-haired leader, the blonde woman, the red-haired one, Sarah. It seems that there are some people missing, such as the blonde-haired angry guy and some other dude. It doesn't matter though. There are some new faces, a red-haired man, and a brown-haired one. Oh. This is this. Looking at the last new member, Lorien's eyes shone brightly. She is quite beautiful. Cough. No, that's not the important part, it's her strength. Looking at the short-haired woman, Lorien could instantly tell that she was one level above everyone present here. As for how strong she really is, that is not something he could tell with a single glance. So this is a special grade sorcerer. Wait. This means that she most likely knows domain expansion. Realizing this, Lorien had the urge to postpone the meeting and go talk to her about it. After all, this is one of his main objectives in this world. But just as this thought appeared, Lorien quickly suppressed it. No need to rush, we can talk about it after this, moreover, this won't take long anyways. Meanwhile, just as Lorien was observing them, everyone else was doing the same. This is especially the case for those who haven't met him yesterday. So this is him. The quickest to react was the short-haired woman, as after realizing that there was no danger, she immediately relaxed and silently started observing him. Weird, I can't feel his presence, it is as if he is one with the world. Moreover, I can't feel any cursed energy on him. If it weren't for observing him with my own eyes, I most likely won't be able to find him. He looks very strong though. Thinking of this, a small grin appeared on her face which she quickly hid. I'll ask him to fight me later. He shouldn't disagree, as he also needs to deter everyone. If Lorien were to know what she was thinking, he would probably jump from happiness, as this is exactly the opportunity he was looking for. Cough. Seeing that everyone kept silent, Lorien finally coughed lightly, attracting their attention. So, let's begin. Tell me your choice, do you agree or disagree with my proposal? Chapter 115, Behind the Scenes. Hearing this question, the atmosphere instantly turned tense. One could even hear a needle drop. For a while, no one moved or made any noise, but their bodies instantly tensed up, looking ready for combat. It seemed as if they were waiting for some sort of signal. It's just that his awaited signal never came, causing the silence to stretch on, making it feel more and more awkward by the second. This continued for a whole minute before the leader finally spoke up. We preliminarily agree to your proposal, it's just that we have some questions before that. The moment he said this, the atmosphere instantly relaxed, returning to normal. It was as if nothing had ever happened. Oh, and what may those questions be? Replied Lorien as a curious look appeared on his face. Frankly, he had noticed their small actions just now. He knew that those guys may have been up to something, but seeing that they didn't actually do anything, he decided not to care much about it. As long as they don't do anything excessive, he won't take action against them. So, looking at the leader in front of him, and the now relaxed atmosphere, Lorien felt a bit amused. Those guys are a bit interesting. Oh right. The questions. Seeing that the leader was about to speak, Lorien quickly pushed those thoughts aside as he started listening to what he had to say. Previously, you stated that you will provide us with protection in case something we can't handle happens. Hearing this, Lorien nodded, indicating that this was truly the case, but then, he paused for a moment before interrupting. Yes, it is true, but that is only when I am around. Seeing that the leader stopped speaking, Lorien spoke again, urging him to continue. So, what is the question? Cough. It's mainly about the heritage you spoke of, can you please give more details? Ah, so it's that. Hearing this question, Lorien instantly remembered that he haven't explained anything to them. Realizing this, Lorien felt a bit awkward, only now did he realize that he was forcing a deal without telling them what they will get in exchange. It's a miracle that things are going so smoothly. Frankly speaking, Lorien thought that he'll have to first fight them before everyone could sit down and talk, but after coming here, things didn't go as he had predicted. I really don't know why those people didn't even try resisting, but it's not bad, is it? But what Lorien didn't know is that this choice was taken after a long meeting and a lot of consideration. It wasn't a random or forced choice that was made because of their lack of strength. Even though this may have been a factor, it isn't actually the main one. First of all, following the small interaction they had with Lorien yesterday, they knew that first-grade sorcerers were basically useless in fighting against him and that only special-grade sorcerers may have a chance. Thankfully, this organization has such sorcerers, so they aren't hopeless yet, it's just that they didn't want to risk direct combat and make things tense. So, as a consequence, a plan was immediately concocted which consists of simply waiting for this special grade to meet Lorien and then deciding what to do. If she thinks that she could beat him, then she'll give a signal and launch a thunderous blow, if not, she'll remain silent and nothing will happen. This is also the reason as to why after Lorien asked the question everyone tensed up. This could also act as another test. After all, if he couldn't even beat a special grade sorcerer, they really doubt that he could fulfill any of his promises. The only reason they made such a flawed plan is that there was basically no other choice, and all they can do now is trust her judgment. Thankfully for them, nothing happened as the moment she saw Lorien, she knew that she was most likely no match for him, so she decided to not risk it. But what she didn't know is that at moment, if she actually took action and attack him, he would most likely not care anymore and kill everyone here. After all, in Lorien's perspective, he was never actually coercing them. If they were to disagree, he'll only try to convince them with words, and in case that also didn't work he'll just leave, but if they were to attack him for no reason, he won't be lenient. So unbeknownst to them, everyone here has basically walked towards death's door and stopped meters away from it before turning back. It's just that things didn't end there, as even though she decided not to start a battle there, she was still very interested in fighting Lorien. So with this in mind, she decided to leave it for later or make it a sort of condition in the negotiation, that way, there will be no hard feelings or risks. Directly launching a combined attack with everyone and asking for a duel are two completely different things. And this basically summarizes one of the reasons behind their choice, the combative one that is. As for the main reason, it is actually the heritage. The techniques they have now are very basic. This is the case for energy manipulation, force exertion, physical techniques, and curse techniques. There is also a severe lack of experience from predecessors which usually helps people avoid detours and aid them to grow faster and more smoothly. This caused the growth of jujutsu sorcerers to be very slow and difficult. Everyone here basically made it through sheer talent, luck, and hard work. It's basically the difference between going to a top university with the best courses, teachers, and equipment vs going to a university in the middle of nowhere with bad courses, moronic teachers, and broken equipment. It is truly hard to grow in such circumstances, but their existence still proved that it is not completely impossible. But now that there is a chance to fill this vacancy, they are willing to give it a try as after all, they have nothing to lose. If push comes to shove and Lorien doesn't give what he promised them, they can also just break their promise. So with all of those conditions combined, they initially agreed to this deal and all that is left is to listen to what sort of heritage Lorien is speaking of. If everything is good and it turns out to be a good deal, they'll immediately agree. Moreover, there won't be any issues of betrayal or anything like that. After all, those guys aren't dumb. As long as there is enough benefits there is no reason as to not work for others, it's just changing a boss with another which is actually not that big of a deal. Ultimately, they were never loyal to any person, their objective has always been growing stronger and killing cursed spirits, so it's truly not that big of a problem as long as Lorien doesn't ask them to start killing humans. Of course, Lorien knew nothing about this, so after hearing this question, he immediately started talking about many of the things he thought of yesterday. So I've been thinking. Chapter 116, Absorption Test. So I've been thinking about this for a while and I came up with 4 different ways to improve your strength. The first is to give you power exertion techniques, the second is to improve your energy and physical control techniques, the third is to directly strengthen you, and the fourth would be improving your cursed techniques. Saying this, Lorien paused for a moment to observe their reactions, but seeing the confused look on their faces, he knew that he needed to explain in further detail. I won't be explaining power exertion and energy manipulation techniques as they are quite easy to understand and I think that everyone here knows them. So first of all, I'll explain what I mean by strengthening you. Saying this, Lorien paused again, looked at the group of people in front of him, and asked. A large part of your strength originates from the cursed energy inside of your body, right? Hearing such an obvious question, a weird look appeared on their faces but they still responded. That is indeed the case, but what does it have to do with anything? Smiling lightly, Lorien then asked another rhetorical question. What would happen if your cursed energy increased significantly? As soon as Lorien said this, even those who remained silent the whole time finally couldn't help but explode. Hey! Impossible! Cursed energy only improves and increases with strength, what you said is impossible. Watching this, Lorien shook his head and spoke. Then why don't we try it here? You've got nothing to lose. The moment Lorien said this, things quickly calmed down but they still looked at him skeptically. Okay then, it seems that no one disagrees, so let's start, said Lorien as he then waved his hand towards Sarah, the woman he followed the first time he came to this HQ. Swish! Following his gesture, waves of negative energy that were floating in the air flooded towards Sarah, entering her body. But if one were to look closely, they'll notice that before that happened, this energy had to pass through an invisible barrier that silently transformed it into another form. This new form of energy is the one that Lorien discovered yesterday after experimenting with the cursed spirit. What Lorien wants to do now is basically another experiment to first of all check if cursed sorcerers could absorb this energy to strengthen themselves, and the world's reaction to this. Will it give him positive or negative feedback? But all of this wasn't that apparent to others, as all those present in this conference room saw was negative energy flooding toward their companion, which caused their expressions to instantly change as their faces were filled with terror. Stop! What are you doing? It's not like no one has ever thought about absorbing the negative energy in the air to improve themselves, it's just that doing so is akin to suicide. After all, this energy is very destructive and damaging to humans. Human sorcerers couldn't even use their own cursed energy to heal themselves, not to mention increase their strength. Moreover, this energy is much more harmful than normal cursed energy as it isn't their own negative aspects. Of course, Lorien also knew this, so seeing their reaction, he quickly spoke as to calm them down. Don't worry, look closely at her state, she is not hurting. Hearing what Lorien said, everyone's attention was again focused on Sarah, who now had a pleasant look on her face. She's actually enjoying this. What's going on here? Looking dumbfounded, no one knew what to say at this moment, they felt as if their whole life was a lie. Why don't we also try it? Go ahead then. I was just joking, Do you want to get rid of me that badly? You're quite rich and you don't have any relatives, so considering our relationship I'll be taking some of your inheritance. Seeing that their friend was okay, those guys even had the nerve to start joking around. But jokes aside, what is going on here? Saying this, the red-haired woman looked at Lorien with a confused look on her face waiting for an answer. I used my power to filter the negative aspect of this energy, so now it is absorbable by anyone. Responded Lorien with a happy smile on his face. This happiness wasn't actually because of anyone here, it is mainly because he has already got the feedback he was waiting for from the world. And as he had predicted, this feedback was positive, and not only that but for the same amount of energy transformed yesterday, he almost got double the luck, which is absolutely appalling. Tisk, but it's to be expected. Indeed, after thinking about it for a moment, Lorien instantly figured it out. I got a portion of luck for transforming negative energy into absorbable energy and another portion for strengthening the aboriginals of this world. If I were to popularize this, the amount of luck I receive will be insane. Unable to hold back his happiness, a wide grin appeared on Lorien's face. Things are getting better and better. Turning his head toward Sarah, who was still absorbing energy, Lorien waved his hand again, interrupting the flow of energy and returning it to its previously calm state. The moment this happened, Sarah woke up and turned her head towards Lorien with a pleading look on her face as if to say, "Why stop? Let's stop here, this is mostly an experiment and it seems that it went well. Later, I'll be giving you some bracelets that have the function of absorbing and purifying energy so you could absorb as much as you want." After saying this, Lorien paused for a moment and continued. "But let me remind you, don't absorb more than your body could handle, otherwise, you may just explode." And as to make it more clear, he raised his hand as a holographic person appeared on top of it just to explode like a bomb the next moment. Seeing this, everyone felt a bit of palpitation, especially Sarah, who almost lost herself in that state. Seeing this, Lorien nodded happily and said, "Now for the last way." Chapter 117, Transformation and Battle. Now, for the last way. This one is actually pretty simple and direct, as it is actually just me helping you improve your cursed techniques. That may be by helping you deduce it or by forcibly improving its quality using my ability. Hearing this, everyone looked at Lorien with wide eyes. If what he had done previously was shocking enough, then this is completely incomprehensible. There has never been a precedent of this before, but considering what happened earlier, this time no one actually said anything to refute his claim. Now, even if he told them that he can turn everyone here into special grade sorcerers, they may not find it that surprising. Thinking of this, they quickly calmed down as they patiently waited for Lorien to give an example like the time before. And indeed, he didn't let them wait for long, as after observing them for a moment, he spoke again while pointing his finger at Sarah. "I'll give you an example." With his finger pointed at her, Lorien immediately started using his power. Dream/reality, forced improvement. As he did so, she suddenly found herself unable to move as her cursed technique also lost control. Unable to control it, this technique called Blood Chain activated on its own as scarlet red colored chains appeared around her, dancing wildly. But only moments after they appeared, they suddenly froze in place as a multicolored light surrounded them. What Lorien is doing now is forcibly improving her cursed technique using his power, which is actually very inefficient energy-wise, as he himself doesn't know what cursed techniques are, their nature, how they function, or any information about them for that matter. It's similar to the Demon Slayer world, where Lorien can give himself immortality using his power but chooses to find and analyze demons, as it is much more efficient and easy to mass produce. But this doesn't matter much now, as all Lorien needs to do is just give her a small improvement to prove that this is actually real. Moreover, Lorien will make this a contribution sort of thing, with him helping only those who contribute to the organization. As for the nature of the contribution and how much is required, it is up to Lorien to decide such things. Basically, all he has been doing since appearing was seducing those guys and showing them future prospects so they can work sincerely and give their all. This is capitalism 101. And by observing their reactions that varied from awe to shock, it seems that Lorien has already achieved his goal. The carrot and stick approach never goes wrong, it's really worth it, thought Lorien while smiling internally. If it weren't for them being useful, I would have already beat them a couple of times at least. Shaking his head, Lorien threw those thoughts aside as he then turned his attention to Sarah, who was still undergoing transformation. "My energy reserves are getting consumed quickly. This is why I don't like using my ability in this sort of manner, it's better to study things before modifying them." "Well, this should be enough. Observing her for a while and sensing her energy level, Lorien decided that this should be enough, and so, without further ado, he immediately stopped his ability, causing the multicolored light surrounding the chains to disappear and at the same time allowing Sarah to regain control over her ability. But even as she did so, she didn't take the chains back. She started observing them and looking for any change. Gold, this is the new color that made its way onto the chains. The previously pure scarlet-colored chains now had golden inscriptions all over them, and not only that, as they appeared much more robust yet weirdly more elegant. All in all, those chains had a complete transformation. Double. They are twice as strong. Moreover, their sealing effect is much stronger now, exclaimed Sarah, feeling the changes in her technique as some information silently appeared in her mind. My strength has already reached the special grade level, it's just that I am lacking domain expansion now, but I feel that I am not that far off from getting it. Saying this, her head then quickly turned toward Lorien as she then took a deep breath before speaking solemnly. Thank you. I owe you one. But after pausing for a moment and looking a couple more times at her cursed technique, she spoke again. No, it's more than that. If you need anything, please tell me and I'll try my best to achieve it. Seeing this, Lorien smiled lightly and nodded at her. He wasn't going to refuse her, after all, there was no need to act hypocritical. Cough. Coughing lightly, Lorien's face then turned serious as he looked at the leader and said. Well, those are all the methods I can think of for now, so, tell me your answer. Following Lorien's words, the atmosphere in stall became silent as it took everyone here a while to react, but the moment they did, the leader immediately took a deep breath and responded. We agree. We agree. Saying this, he didn't stop there as he then stood up and gave Lorien a small bow before continuing. I apologize for our previous actions and for any misunderstandings that may have occurred. Seeing this, Lorien shook his head lightly and said. It's okay, it doesn't matter anyways, after all, we are now family. Taken aback, the leader looked at Lorien wide-eyed for a moment before responding with a laugh. Ha ha, yes we are. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Seeing this, the atmosphere in the room instantly shifted as everyone visibly relaxed with smiles appearing on their faces. But just as this happened, the short-haired special grade sorcerer in the room suddenly spoke, causing everyone to freeze, including Lorien. I want to fight you. Hearing this, the first to react wasn't Lorien but the leader, who quickly turned his head toward her and spoke angrily. What are you doing? After all he saw, he now regards Lorien as their only hope if they ever want to truly defeat those cursed spirits, so his reaction is very understandable. Of course, the girl also knew this, so she immediately explained. This has nothing to do with the organization, this is my personal request as I want to try fighting someone stronger than me and to check my strength. Saying this, she turned her head toward Lorien, looking at him with hopeful eyes. I know that this request may be a bit over the top. But, will you please fight me? Chapter 118, Introductions. Hearing this, Lorien almost busted out laughing. Ha ha ha. And here I was waiting for a chance, to think it would appear so quickly. Ever since seeing her, Lorien has been racking his brain and thinking of ways to drag her into a battle, that way he could analyze her domain expansion and develop one of his own if the analysis proves sufficient. But now, it seems that this is no longer needed as his opponent has already presented herself on a silver plate. But even though this was the case, Lorien didn't immediately agree as he wanted to maximize whatever benefits he could get. So, scratching his chin, his index finger started tapping slowly at the table in front of him while the focus in his eyes faded a bit. From an outsider's point of view, it looked as if he was deep in thought. This should do it. Seeing the increasingly nervous eyes of those around, Lorien finally stopped acting as he then nodded his head and responded. I agree, but you owe me one. Hearing this, the girl hesitated for a moment before agreeing. As long as it isn't something outrageous. Good. But I am quite curious, could you tell me why you chose to fight me and not those special grade sorcerers from other countries? Even if that proves impossible, you could also find some special grade cursed spirit to fight. No. It's not that I don't want to fight those sorcerers from other countries, but as an official sorcerer from this country and the only special grade living here, I am kind of a representative of all the sorcerers here, so if I were to fight those special grades from other countries for no reason, it may count as a provocation. Saying this, a bitter look appeared on her face. Apparently, she's been brooding over this for a while. As for the cursed spirits, they are very rare, I have only met one in my whole life, moreover finding them is a matter of pure luck. Hearing this, Lorien nodded, indicating his understanding. I see, so that's how it is. Okay then, let's not waste any time. Reaching here, Lorien froze dead in his tracks under the weird gazes of everyone present. Only now did he remember that he actually never introduced himself nor asked for the names of anyone here. Thinking of this, he looked a bit embarrassed but still decided to start from the beginning, so after a light cough, he spoke. Cough. Speaking of which, I haven't introduced myself yet, have I? Well, my name is Lorien. As for my ability, I can basically do whatever I want, as long as I can imagine it, I can do it. Giving a vague introduction about his ability, Lorien left the rest for their imagination as he then looked towards them. Seeing this, everyone realized what was going on as they quickly started introducing themselves, and the first to do so was the black-haired leader. Nice to meet you. My name is Amir, and my cursed technique is called cursed painting. Following this, the others also started introducing themselves one by one. My name is Sarah, and my cursed technique is called blood chain. Hi. I am Dirin, and my cursed technique is called puncture. Its ability is as its name suggests, said the red-haired girl enthusiastically. Hello. My name is Zara, and my cursed technique is called green and yellow, spoke the blonde girl next to her. And then, it was finally the turn of the two men who kept silent all this time. Nice to meet you. My name is Nader, and my cursed technique is amplification, said the red-haired one. Hi. My name is Shadow, and I possess a rare elemental curse technique that allows me to control shadows, spoke the brown-haired man indifferently, but one could still hear the pride in his voice. And finally, with most done with their introduction, everyone turned their head to the last remaining member. My name is Leela, and my cursed technique is called deception. Saying this, the short-haired girl had a teasing look on her face as if she was playing a trick. This exact reaction attracted Lorien's interest. So wanting to see what she was up to, Lorien cooperated with her performance. Deception head, sounds interesting. After saying this, Lorien paused for a moment before continuing. Now that we are done with the introduction, let's go fight. Good. Let's go. Now, with everything settled, the two of them made their way to a big field behind the building that they were in under the leadership of Amir. Are we going to fight here? Yes. Moreover, they weren't alone, as everyone that was previously present in the conference room followed them to watch the battle. After all, such an occurrence is very rare. Do you think Leela has a chance? Maybe. Yes, her ability is very weird, no one knows what may happen. If Lorien were to get caught off guard, he could indeed lose this. Hearing the conversations around him, Lorien's interest was piqued. He now really wanted to know what her ability truly was. It's just that Lorien wasn't the only one that was eager for the battle, as the moment they reached here, Leela immediately started walking towards the center of the empty green field. Seeing this, Lorien also followed suit as made his way toward her. I have a feeling that this is going to be interesting. Meanwhile, just as this was happening, a blonde-haired man could be seen standing in what looked like a witch's den. Blood was splattered all over the place, weird dolls, human hair, and other fragments could be seen everywhere. Some of them were hung, some thrown on the floor, while others were put on the table. With a disgusted look on his face, the man looked at the distorted woman in front of him. Did you bring the sacrifice? Said the old woman. Yes. Hearing this answer, the old woman looked around perplexed. Where is it? It is right in front of me. Hey. Boom. Moments later, this man called Phoenix could be seen standing in the open with a blazing fire behind him. Tisk, do those dark rats really think that I'll join them after leaving the organization? Morons. My goal has always been the same, it doesn't matter where I am. Saying this, Phoenix looked as if he had finally put some sort of burden down, but even then, his eyes looked at the horizon as if looking for something. I just hope that the organization doesn't go into a dark path. Otherwise. Chapter 119, Battle begins. Meanwhile, at the center of the field, Lorien and Leela could be seen standing face to face with some distance between them. Neither of them spoke, as both knew that the moment they stood there, the battle has already begun. The first to make a move was Leela, who extended her hand, causing a silver spear to suddenly appear in her hands. This. Seeing the spear suddenly appearing, Lorien's eyes shrank as his somewhat carefree attitude was instantly shattered. Where did that spear come from? I haven't noticed it until she took the initiative to show it. What's going on here? Turning serious, the ring worn on his right hand was instantly transformed into a golden-bladed sword with a dark handle. Let's not be careless here, this world is full of weird and incomprehensible abilities, and God knows what her power is. She previously called her cursed technique deception, but what does it even mean? With that in mind, Lorien instantly entered a battle state as he used the long-abandoned transparent world state. Using it, Lorien's vision changed, enabling him to see the inner working of her body, which in turn allows him to predict her actions. Muscles and joints, not the best view, but it is quite useful. Ever since getting this technique, Lorien hasn't actually used it that much, not to mention that this ability could now be replaced with Lorien's clairvoyance, which is much more useful in combat. I won't be using my abilities for now, at least I won't attack using them. After all, I want this battle to be as long as possible so I can analyze her domain expansion. It's just that I have to first make her use it. Of course, Lorien wasn't the only one who was observing his opponent, as Leela, who is standing on the opposite side, was doing the same. What is with this ominous feeling? After he took out his sword, his aura instantly changed, but that's not the issue. Standing here, I can feel malice from everywhere around me, it is as if the world itself is excluding me. Is this how it feels like to get abandoned by the world? Feeling uncomfortable, Leela decided not to wait any longer as she immediately rushed toward Lorien, stabbing forward with her spear. Swish! Predicting her actions, the moment she attacked, Lorien has already started defending. Moreover, he even had the time to evaluate her. Her physical strength isn't that good, at least it is well below mine. Her martial arts, or at least her power exertion technique, is also very bad, not to mention fully utilizing her power. She isn't even exerting 70% of it. Even though I have already predicted this, it is a bit disappointing. But the way she is manipulating cursed energy and shrouding her weapon with it is good, at least on par with me. Even though Lorien was evaluating her in his mind, his body didn't stop moving as he has already raised his sword to defend himself while also getting ready to counterattack. But then, just as her spear was about to make contact with his sword, Lorien noticed a smile appearing on her face. Why is she smiling like this? It is as if she has succeeded in some sort of trick. Even though something felt a bit off, Lorien still didn't stop his action, as there is nothing else he could do, it was just that he became more alert. I should keep alert. But then, just as their weapons were about to make contact, Lorien's clairvoyance activated on its own, forcing him to look into the future. This. Reacting to what he saw, Lorien immediately stopped defending and instantly activated his ability. Dream/reality, dream walking. This is the ability that allows Lorien to turn himself into a dream, enabling him to have an ability similar to that of Logia fruits in the One Piece world, just much more effective and impossible to counter without the use of similar dream abilities. Swish! Crossing paths, Lorien and Leela phased right through each other's bodies, causing the attack to be unable to find its target. Whaah! Boom! Unable to hit Lorien, Leela couldn't take back her attack at the last moment because of the lack of control. All she could do was redirect the attack toward the ground and use the shock to propel herself far away and out of Lorien's range of attack to prevent him from taking advantage of her state. It's just that Lorien wasn't interested in doing this, as his attention was focused on the future, or more precisely the future possibility he just saw. When my sword touched her spear, it just phased right through it as if it was never there, which caused me to be unable to react, and I was hit by her. It's just that when I look back at it, the wound's location and the position of the spear don't add up. I am sure that the spear she attacked me with wasn't the one that caused the wound, but another one. Wait. Her ability is called deception. I previously wasn't able to detect where her weapon came from. Could it be? Turning his head toward her just in time for her to get into position again, Lorien said. You have deceived my senses, haven't you? Hey! Wide-eyed, Leela, who was about to attack again with the objective of figuring out Lorien's ability and the reason why she phased right through him, immediately stopped dead in her tracks. Seeing this, Lorien didn't need her to answer, as he could tell that his guess was correct based on her reaction. So my senses are really deceived. But how does this ability work? I mean, if it directly acts on my body, I should have been able to detect it and erase it, but that isn't the case. I really hate abilities like this, they are really weird. Shaking his head, Lorien then activated his clairvoyance and locked it into observing a couple of seconds into the future, which is the most optimal way to use it in combat. Looking further than that is useless unless fighting someone who also has similar abilities. I can't find the real position of her weapon like this, and I'll be in a very defensive position unless I use my ability to attack. But it's not like there is no way to deal with her. After all, if I were to attack, she'll need to defend. At the time, I'll be able to find her weapon. Deciding on this, Lorien immediately raised his sword and shot forward with great speed, and slashed toward her. Swish! Chapter 120, Shameless Lorien. Instantly reacting, Leela raised her spear to block the attack, and by doing so, she inadvertently exposed its true location. So your weapon is actually here, said Lorien teasingly the moment their weapons made contact, to which Leela responded with a counterattack and replied. Who knows? Swish! Slash! Ding! Ding! With their weapons colliding, the two entered high-speed close-range combat. From an outsider's point of view, all that can be seen is two shadows clashing at incredible speeds with the noise of weapons colliding echoing everywhere. At first, both of them looked approximately equal, with Leela even having a bit of an edge over Lorien despite him having a much higher level of martial arts. This is mainly because she kept doing tricks and disrupting Lorien's senses, from slightly shifting the true location of the weapon, making it seem shorter than it actually is, delaying the noise of their collision, increasing or decreasing the brightness, or even totally shifting her location. All of this made it hard for Lorien to fight properly. In the Demon Slayer world, Lorien reached the extraordinary level in swordsmanship with his body even responding instinctively to attack and reacting in the most optimal way. This may be great in normal situations, but now, this is actually a handicap for him. After all, to react, there needs to be an input which may be visual, auditory, tactile, or any other sense. But what happens if this input is flawed? Obviously, the output would also be flawed. And this is exactly what is happening here, as Lorien's five senses are telling him something while the reality is an entirely different thing. It's just that thankfully, this state didn't last long, as after figuring this out, Lorien started quickly adapting, making those responses much more controlled. This caused the scales of battle to shift, with Lorien gaining more and more advantage. Moreover, in this battle, Lorien started developing a new sense that he never knew existed before. This sense is actually linked to the reality part in Lorien's power, and more specifically, it is his sense of reality. To think I'd be forced to actually improve in such a battle. Life is really full of variables and unknowns. Really, one may find in the river what he may not be able to find in the sea. Swish! Ding! Slash! As the battle continued, Lorien visibly became more and more comfortable as he discarded his normal senses and even no longer relied on his clairvoyance, as he now started perceiving reality itself. After all, even when he used clairvoyance to fight her, he was still finding trouble with it, as it only allows him to see a couple of seconds into the future. And we have to put an emphasis on see here. By using clairvoyance, Lorien observes the world from his future first-person perspective, but no matter what period of time it is, he is still watching the world with his own eyes. Clairvoyance holds the power of time, not truth, so it can't be used to see through such illusions and deceptions. So what Lorien has been doing all this time with clairvoyance is focusing on the position of wounds he'll receive in the future and making a prediction based on that. And as this may sound, it is very complex and inefficient for battle. It may allow him to be unbeatable, but it still can't make him fight comfortably. That is, at least if he keeps using the same level of physical strength and not using his ability as he is doing now. Looking back at it, Lorien feels grateful for his choice of handicapping himself in this battle. Otherwise, he would not have been put in such a situation and would not have been able to develop this new sense. Feeling more and more comfortable as his senses expanded and became clearer and clearer, Lorien couldn't help but joke around. Your ability is really annoying, you know that, right? Hearing this, Leela, whose situation was becoming worse by the second, was pissed off. Me? My ability is annoying. Shameless. This guy is completely shameless. My ability only disrupts and deceives things. But what about you, asshole? You keep miraculously predicting my attacks, which means that you have some sort of ability that allows you to look into the future, and combined with that annoying ability to phase through things, it is simply invincible in normal combat. There are also the abilities you haven't used yet, like the one you applied on my companions, which causes their cursed techniques to become unusable and made them not able to move. God knows how many abilities you have. When colliding, I can also feel that you are restricting your physical strength to fight me. Is bullying a girl so enjoyable to you? The more she thought about it, the angrier Leela became. She wanted to scream at him and make his shamelessness known to the world. It's just that it's a pity she couldn't speak now, as she is too busy defending herself. This continued for a while until Lorien felt completely comfortable with this new sense and got fully used to it. I can now freely use it in combat, I just need to make it instinctive later. Oh. There is also the need to make my swordsmanship and martial arts react based on it. not on normal senses, those are easy to deceive. Tisk, some new thing to do, they never end, do they? Even though Lorien was thinking so, one couldn't see any negative emotions on his face, rather, the smile that silently appeared on his countenance revealed his real feelings. It's just that this smile was perceived as a mocking smile by Leela, who was currently battling him. Asshole! You are even mocking me now. But just then, as she was internally ranting, something happened that almost caused her to curse out loud. Your ability is truly annoying, but I have to admit that it is truly useful. Saying this, a wicked smile appeared on Lorien's face as he then declared. I'll be taking it. Chapter 121, Domain Expansion. Of course, by taking, Lorien didn't mean robbing her of her power or anything like that, rather, it meant using his own power in a manner that simulates her ability's effects. It's just that being a replica doesn't entail that it would be worse than Layla's original ability, quite the opposite actually. As with Lorien's powers, this ability is much more annoying. And of course, Lorien didn't waste any moment to prove this as he instantly started testing this ability in combat. Swish! Clang! Ding! Ding! Appearing in a very difficult position, Leela was barely able to defend herself, but even then she still persisted with sheer will. In her current state, she didn't have much time or energy to think about what Lorien meant by taking it, but as the battle continued she soon understood what he was talking about as something unexpected suddenly happened. Just as they were battling normally, she raised her spear to block Lorien's slash. Doing so, she waited for the collision to happen so she could try and find an opportunity for a counterattack or to get ready to defend against the next onslaught of attacks. It's just that under her shocked eyes, when their weapons were about to make contact, they phased right through each other. Then, without allowing her any time to react, Lorien's sword disappeared right in front of her eyes just to appear from another direction. Swish! Unable to react, Leela couldn't dodge this sudden attack, causing it to hit its target, but thankfully for her, this slash only left a shallow cut as it appears that Lorien didn't want to gravely injure her. Slash! Slack! Slack! Not caring about the new wound and the blood dripping down, Leela was completely focused on analyzing what had just happened. Did he just use my ability? Unable to believe this, Leela really wanted to deny it, at least that way, her worldview won't completely collapse. Maybe it's just some other ability, I still can't come to a conclusion right now. God knows how many abilities this guy has, he is probably just trying to piss me off. Yes, that's probably it. Comforting herself and denying the inevitable, Leela didn't have much time to think more about it as Lorien's attacks soon resumed with him testing new ways to use this ability. From slightly shifting the weapon's location, making it at times longer and others smaller, to phasing his weapon through hers just to then restore its state and hit her, Lorien kept trying every trick he could think of. Moreover, thanks to his reality warping powers, those illusions aren't always illusions as they may suddenly turn real. This caused the obvious fake attacks or shifts to abruptly turn real at the last second. Faced with this sort of attack, Leela couldn't do anything about it. After all, her ability is now completely useless to Lorien, who can have developed a new sense which he called reality sense. But on the other hand, Lorien could do whatever he wants. It's the classic I can use your abilities but you can't. Faced with this, Leela couldn't deny it any longer no matter how much she wanted to. This guy actually copied my ability. Shameless. Asshole. What to do now? My ability is completely useless to him. But just then she was deep in thought, thinking of ways to turn the battle around. Lorien suddenly opened his mouth and spoke. I really like this ability, thank you. Hearing this, Layla's anger completely exploded. First, he stole her ability, then, he used it against her, and now, he is mocking her. Okay. That is it. Unable to hold back her rage, Leela finally took a deep breath as she then attacked Lorien with all she has. Boom. Crack. The moment Lorien's sword and her spear made contact, a black flash of thunder suddenly emerged, causing her attack strength to greatly increase. It may have been because of anger, but her attack unexpectedly triggered a black flash. A black flash is a distortion in space that occurs when cursed energy is applied within 0.000001 seconds of a physical hit. When a sorcerer achieves this, their cursed energy flashes black, and the destructive power of their strike gets amplified to the power of 2.5. This sudden increase in attack power instantly pushed Lorien back and gave some space to Leela, who immediately took advantage of it as she raised her and crossed her fingers in front of her. All she wanted to do now is use her domain expansion, that way she could ensure at least that her attacks would hit. Moreover, there is also that chance that he wouldn't be able to figure out which attacks are fake any longer. Let's see how you deal with this. Seeing her movement, Lorien instantly realized what she was up to, and as a consequence, he immediately stopped in place, not resuming his attacks. It seems that provoking her was indeed the right choice. Now all I have to do is wait for her domain expansion and then analyze it. And it seems that he didn't have to wait long for this, as just a moment later, Leela opened her eyes and looked at Lorien. Try dodging this. Saying this, a grin appeared on her face as she stated. Domain expansion, fool's wisdom. The moment she spoke, a wave of energy instantly shrouded the place and enveloped both her and Lorien inside. Then, surrounding them, different styles of Joker playing cards started emerging from the ground and quickly grew big in size, surrounding them in a circle. This circle wasn't that big, with a radius of about 150 meters. Other than that, the online difference Lorien noticed was the ground below him turning into a blue-colored woven fabric that looks very much like the one used to play card games on. Tisk, so are we standing on top of a card game table? Interesting. Observing his surroundings, Lorien's eyes shone brightly as he didn't forget to begin using his power to analyze it. So this is a domain expansion. Chapter 122, Lethal Domain. Domain expansion, the most supreme ability of any Jujutsu sorcerer. It is an advanced barrier technique that takes the user's innate curse technique and domain as a base, creating a separate space and using cursed energy to construct an environment within it, trapping the target inside it. There are two main categories of domains, the first being the lethal domain, which is constructed to be lethal and requires tremendous skill and a lot of cursed energy to create. Such domain amplifies the user's curse techniques, and any that are deployed are guaranteed to hit their target. This can't-miss attack used in a domain hits its target instantly and can't even be stopped by Satoru Gojo's Infinity. As for the second category, it is the non-lethal domain, which may sound like a subpar version of the lethal domain, but that is not actually the case. This sort of domain wasn't constructed to be fatal, rather, it focuses more on outsmarting people and using certain rules to one's advantage. When such a domain is employed, the creator of the domain can create a specific scenario and set of rules leveraging heavenly constraints and vows to force the target to obey the rules of the embedded curse technique. It is very similar to the games in the world of No Game No Life and Mundaiji, just much less powerful. And an example of such a domain is the Deadly Sentencing domain by Hiromi Higuruma, which reflects a small courtroom where the user and their target stand across from one another, playing the roles of prosecutor and defendant. Thinking of this, Lorien started curiously observing his surrounding again. This is most likely a lethal domain. It's a pity, I really think that her ability is very compatible with non-lethal domains. I'll suggest it to her after this battle, it's my subordinate anyways, her getting stronger is good for me. But how will she even go about reconstructing it though? After all, from what I could tell, most domains are innate. But is that truly the case? Can domains not be modified? Never mind, it's not the time for this. Shaking his head, Lorien threw those thoughts aside as he started analyzing the information he was receiving from his ability that was still constantly scanning this domain and decoding it. Barrier technique. Hey. Now that I think of it, barrier techniques may be the true main ability of this world. After all, most advanced abilities are actually based on it. From what I could remember, domain expansion is just one of the many advanced barrier techniques, not the only one. For example, there is the simple domains that erects a small barrier around the user to protect them from enemy domain expansions. Domain amplification, which coats the user in an aura that automatically nullifies any technique it comes into contact with. Not to mention the anti-domain techniques such as hollow wicker basket, and falling blossom emotion. Hey, it seems that I may have to focus on barrier techniques later on, I have actually ignored such an important thing for so long. Recognizing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit of joy as a smile appeared on his face. But then, just as that happened, a voice suddenly appeared, instantly waking him up from his trance. What are you smiling about? Hearing this, Lorien instantly turned his attention toward the source of the noise, and there stood Leela with a confident look on her face. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but smile as he started teasing the girl in front of him. I really like the decor you got here. You. Hearing this, and seeing Lorien's nonchalant appearance, Leela didn't want to talk to him anymore. This guy really knows how to piss me off. Deciding not to waste any more time as her cursed energy is still getting consumed, Leela held the spear in her right hand tightly and got ready to pierce forward. But just as that happened, Lorien's clairvoyance activated on its own, warning him of the imminent danger. An instant must-hit attack. Hey. Well, This domain is made of her cursed technique, so I am practically always in contact with it. Technically speaking, I have already been hit by it. I could dodge this attack as usual by turning myself into a dream, but that'll most likely make her give up fighting me. I still need more time to fully analyze this domain. Indeed, even though lethal domains have a must-hit attribute, that is only for people trapped inside of it, but for Lorien, this is completely useless. After all, when he uses that ability and turns himself into a dream, he becomes practically inexistent. One can't hit what doesn't exist in the first place. Sigh, it seems that I have to fight her head-on. Seeing Leela raise her, Lorien suddenly remembered an ability he had previously overlooked, and it is the Eternal Dreamland ability attached to his scabbard. The reason for this is mainly that Lorien never used it before in combat, as it wasn't long ago since its activation, which caused it to be easily omitted. But now that he thought of it, he instantly activated it, causing a multicolored barrier to appear surrounding him inside. It's just that this wide spherical barrier only existed in that form for a moment before shrinking back and attaching itself to Lorien like a thin protective coating. This happened just in time for Layla's attack as she stabbed her spear toward Lorien, who in reaction swung his sword to block the attack. Swish! Leaving a long trail of golden sword light, the sword instantly met its target, but just as that happened, something unbelievable transpired. When his weapon was about to make contact with Layla's attack, both her and her spear disappeared just to appear to his right. This happened so quickly, that even though Lorien's clairvoyance instantly sent warning signals, he couldn't physically react fast enough to stop his own slash mid-air and defend. So seeing Layla's spear piercing the air and heading toward him, Lorien's mind started pacing quickly. What just happened? My reality sense didn't react at all. No, never mind that, I'll think about it later, but what should I do now? Should I use my ability? No, I'll just use this opportunity to try the defensive capabilities of the Eternal Dreamland. Deciding on this, Lorien immediately gave up defending this attack, allowing it to continue its way unimpeded as it headed toward his head. Swish! But just as that was about to happen, Leela changed the direction of her attack, hitting Lorien's shoulder instead. After all, she had no idea about Lorien's abilities and didn't know if he could defend against her attack. So with that in mind, she decided not to attack fatal positions just in case. Boom! The moment her weapon and Lorien's shoulder made contact, another black flash appeared, further amplifying the attack and causing Lorien to be launched back, hitting one of the Joker playing cards that acted like a barrier. Seeing this, Leela immediately stopped her attack as she couldn't help but feel a bit worried. Is he alright? Chapter 123, Wake Up to Reality. But then, just as she was feeling somewhat guilty, a voice sounded which caused her to instantly extinguish those feelings. Nice attack. It's just that it is still a bit weak, you should strengthen it a bit more, that way, it may act like a good message. Next to the Joker card, there stood Lorien completely unscathed, not to mention injuring him, even his clothes were not affected. But even though that was the case, he still felt shocked by Layla's attack. The Eternal Dreamland is much more effective than I previously anticipated. I actually received 0 damage. It seems that I'll be using it more in the future. But that aside, what's up with her attack? Looking back at it, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit puzzled. One moment they were about to collide, and the next, she appeared next to him. Even his clairvoyance couldn't fully predict it. Moreover, his clairvoyance wasn't the only thing that failed, even his new reality sense failed. It's really weird. I am sure her first attack was real, but so is the switch. It's very similar to... Reaching here, Lorien's eyes widened as if understanding something. Her cursed technique is deception. Outside the domain, she used it as a sort of illusion, but it seems that here it has a completely different function. No, I shouldn't call it a different function, it is most likely based on the reverse curse technique. Her cursed technique is deception and its reverse should be called truth. This reverse curse technique is very similar to reality warping, it is probably something along the lines of turning deception into truth. That way, it could explain how it confused my clairvoyance and reality sense. It's just that I felt no reality warping here, which is very weird. Basically figuring out the function of her domain, Lorien felt a bit annoyed. He now could experience firsthand how most of his enemies felt when facing him. It's really annoying. Moreover, with the must-hit effect of domains, I simply can't evade her attacks unless I use my own ability. Tisk, cursed techniques in this world are truly amazing, they touch upon the soul, infinity, luck, immortality, copying all abilities, and now there is a domain that can alter reality in a roundabout way. But hey, looking at it this way, this domain isn't actually that insane compared to the ones stated above. If Leela were to fight Gojo for example and their domains were to collide, she would most likely lose. This is also most likely the case for Mahito. I'd bet that this also consumes a lot of cursed energy. Meanwhile, just as Lorien was thinking about their last collision, Leela was also doing the same as she kept observing him. This guy is annoying as ever, and it appears that he actually took no damage. Tisk, I should have aimed for the head, that way, he might have actually shut up for a second. But just as she thought of this, a wicked smile appeared on her face. Now that I know this guy won't die easily, I can just beat him up without worrying. But I have to be quick about it, my domain really takes a lot of energy, it may be strong, but I can't hold it for long. Thinking of this, Leela didn't hesitate any longer as she immediately shot forward toward Lorien who quickly reacted to block the attack. Swish! It's just that this was completely useless as the same scenario that occurred earlier happened again, but this time, Leela didn't stop after one attack as she quickly followed up with a couple more stabs. Swish! Swish! Boom! Getting thrown around the domain, even though he wasn't getting any damage, Lorien still felt a bit annoyed. So this is how it usually feels like to fight me. This is very frustrating. It's just that Leela didn't care about this, rather, it was something she was happy to see as the more she attacked the more joyful she became. She appeared to be releasing her pent-up frustration and anger with every strike she made. This is for bullying me earlier. This is for copying my ability. This is for mocking me. Continuing her flurry of attacks, even though her energy was getting consumed at an incredible rate, Leela didn't care at all as with every attack she made, she felt incredible joy and happiness. Take this! Ha 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 ha! Attacking continuously, Leela took advantage of this opportunity as she slowly started changing her attack style to mimic the way Lorien attacked her outside and his fighting style. This continued for a while as she then started merging this style with her own until she finally evolved a completely new one. Even though this guy is annoying, I have to admit that his combat style is really good, there are a lot of things I can learn from. Well, he stole my technique and I stole his style, we can now call it even. Moreover, it's not every day that I can find such an opponent who I can fight with for a long time without worry, I should take advantage of this opportunity to test as many new applications of my ability as I can. Of course, as she did this, Lorien instantly noticed what she was doing which caused him to feel a bit speechless. Do all women hold such a grudge? Well, whatever, I have already finished analyzing the domain so it's time to end this. The moment he decided this, Lorien immediately began using his power which caused Leela who was still attacking him to receive the shock of her life as she observed her attack phase right through Lorien's body the same way it did outside. What in? This sudden occurrence instantly caused Leela to freeze in place not knowing what to do, especially when seeing the vicious look on Lorien's face, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine as her heart sank slightly. I may have messed up. Moreover, things didn't end there as just a fraction of a second later, she felt herself lose control of this domain, it was as if there was a higher authority blocking her access. Ugh, should I apologize? Not caring about what was currently going on in Layla's mind, Lorien looked at her for a moment before speaking. Okay, we've had our fun, we should end this. Saying this, Lorien couldn't help but start provoking her as a payback for the previous battle. Moreover, deception is still deception. You should wake up to reality. And that was the last thing Leela heard before losing consciousness as a burst of white light engulfed her vision. Swish! Chapter 124, Capital. 22nd of April 2016. Inside the highest floor of a high-rising building situated at the center of the newly rebuilt HQ, there stood Lorien next to the glass window as he observed everything below while reminiscing about the past few months. 3 months have passed, and a lot has changed. Looking back at this period of time, a lot of things happened, be it the organization completely transforming or Lorien improving his strength. Starting with the organization, the first thing that Lorien ordered after being in control was understandably asking for an ID, passport, and other legal documents. This did indeed get some eyebrows raised, but nobody really cared much about such things, and with the strength and authority of the organization, Lorien got what he wanted in a couple of days as someone delivered them to his desk. Following that, Lorien did a complete overhaul as he reconstructed the HQ himself, making it bigger, more modern, and much more imposing. I may have picked a new hobby from the high school of the dead world, should I start a YouTube channel and call this real-life Minecraft? It's just that Lorien didn't stop there as he then also ordered the creation of branches all over the country to strengthen the organization's control, reach, and power. But to do so, a lot of manpower is needed, so he turned his attention to that as he began doing internal tests to evaluate, and better organize personnel, and to know their exact strength. In doing so, some were demoted to lower ranks while others were promoted. Moreover, Lorien also ordered the recruitment of new members, which was the main reason for his actions in the first place. Of course, not all recruits were innate curse technique users, as only a few of them were, while most were normal people with very high cursed energy levels and specific profiles. After all, innate jujutsu sorcerers are very hard to find, contrary to normal people where a lot of requirements can be set. It's just that now, a new issue appeared, and that is that all of this requires money, which the organization doesn't actually have much of, considering the state of the country it is located in. So with that in mind, Lorien quickly took care of things himself, as he first borrowed money from offshore accounts using his ability to hack into them. No security can stop me from forcefully changing a 0 into a 1 and a 1 into a 0. The internet and electronics, in general, are really fragile. It's just that while he did this, Lorien also discovered that most banks actually had defenses and alarms set up to alert them of the intrusion of cursed energy. Apparently, it seems that this was common practice, as the sorcerers were much more integrated into normal society than Lorien previously anticipated. Of course, that wasn't the only way of making money that Lorien had thought of, as it is very short-sighted and is completely based on Lorien's power. So, not wanting to keep creating money himself, Lorien ordered the creation of a number of enterprises, some of which were of a relatively stable nature, such as essential goods and food, while others were technology-related. There were a couple of issues he faced when he did so, especially from some old families and companies that had monopolies over the industry and wanted to forcefully keep the market to themselves, but they were quickly taken care of. It's just that as of now, no profit was generated yet, as most of those companies are still in the launch phase, which requires money for R&D and doesn't yield much profit. For that he needs to wait a while longer for things to start rolling. However, Lorien still has to admit that his clairvoyance is very useful in business, as there is basically no need for market research to determine product acceptability by potential customers. All he needs to do is just look at all the possible outcomes and determine the best product that'll yield the best results and order its creation. All the R&D has basically gone into the creation of the product and not actual market research. However, that is not something Lorien needs to care much for anymore, as he placed people in charge of those companies, and all he needs to do now is just examine the results and take action accordingly. Thankfully, the money siphoned by Lorien from those large number of offshore accounts is large enough to satisfy the needs of those companies, finance the building of new bases, employ more people, install more detection devices, and to also increase the wages of jujutsu sorcerers, considering the nature and risk factor of their work, which will increase their loyalty and motivation. Just looking at this, one could tell how much money Lorien had actually borrowed from those accounts. It's just that considering that most of it is money that was hidden away because of its dark origin, he didn't lose any moment of sleep because of it. Money laundering, drug money, tax evasion, and many others, I'll borrow them for a better cause. It's just that things didn't end here for the organization, as after doing all of this and finally stabilizing it, Lorien immediately began his main plan, which is planting trees. Lorien has never forgotten his main objective for coming to this world, so now after creating a strong foundation, he immediately began work. It's just that this time Lorien didn't stop at just ordering the sorcerers to plant those trees in all corners of the country and just sat and wait. No, this time, he has a much bigger plan. For this, he even created a new non-profit organization called Dream Project that takes advantage of a global trend, which is protecting the environment. Protect the planet. Plant trees. And as one may expect, the company's mission is to reforest the planet, provide education, awareness, and engagement on the importance of trees in the ecosystem, and to inspire action. Moreover, the moment this organization was created, large financial support was immediately thrown at it by the other enterprises made by Lorien, and partnerships were established. Now after the launch of those products, the packages will always contain a seed of the dream tree that anyone can plant. Only after doing so did Lorien provide a large number of seeds that is enough to cover the earth a couple of times over. After all, he didn't want to keep creating them per demand, not to mention that there was no need to worry about them spoiling or anything like that. Moreover, those seeds are quite special, as Lorien personally modified and adapted them to this world, adding the function of negative energy purifying. It's just that Lorien made it so that it only purifies a certain amount of negative energy while keeping a certain amount of it in the atmosphere, so it doesn't hugely affect the birth of cursed spirits. That way, the ecosystem of this world won't be affected and the cursed spirits side will no longer have the upper hand. Moreover, considering that this non-profit organization will be under the watchful eyes of the whole world, he announced that the seeds planted by them are genetically modified and improved, allowing them to grow at an incredible speed and reach maturity in just a couple of months. And not only that, but also the carbon absorption and oxygen emission were greatly improved, and they have the ability to grow in basically any environment. Not to mention the fact that they look aesthetically pleasing. And the moment this was announced, the organization was contacted by a large number of research facilities, organizations, and enterprises to confirm and to ask for samples to research, which Lorien gladly provided. After all, there was no way they could gain anything from it, considering that all of those features originate from Lorien's power hidden inside of the seed and the seed itself. And even if some sorcerer was invited, Lorien hid a surprise inside that guarantees that whenever this sorcerer sees any tree or seed in the future, he'll run for his life. Assured scar for life with a lifelong money-back policy. And so like that, a website was also quickly created, followed by social media accounts to cover as many channels as possible. Then, influencers all over the world were contacted and were paid large sums of money to diffuse the message, which was relatively easy considering the nature of the organization and the global trend. And from there, everything was easy, as it was negotiated that after tests to make sure that the trees are safe for use and plant, they'll start work all over the world. Soon, the Tree of Dreams will cover the whole planet. Thinking of this, a grin appeared on Lorien's face as he stretched lazily. I really love the modern world. Things are relatively easy to do as long as the right method is used. Chapter 125, Personal Improvement. Frankly, even though this experience was a lot of fun, Lorien isn't that interested in such managerial roles, as he still prefers to use such time to improve his own strength. If it weren't for the fact that this is a very important step in his plan to get ownership of this world, Lorien wouldn't have even bothered with it. However, doing business now so he can have fun later when he goes to Japan is indeed a much better choice. At least, all he needs to do now is just wait until a lot of dream trees are planted all over the planet, and he'll automatically get ownership of the world after a while. This way, he won't have to bother acting seriously and slowly planning everything when he goes and participates in the plot. Now, he can just do whatever he wants. See someone he likes? Help him. See someone he doesn't like? Beat him. See a woman he likes? Cough. Anyways, you get the point. Ah yes, freedom. I basically won't have to worry about the consequences of my action and how they will affect my plan. I am really tired of it. I can at least act freely this time. Everything went much better than I expected. I should always do this in the future. Moreover, it seems that I make for a great businessman. Cough. Shaking his head and throwing those thoughts aside, Lorien couldn't help but start thinking of the progress of his personal strength in the past 3 months. After all, even though he made a lot of changes to the organization and even created a number of enterprises and branched into many industries, this was far from all the things he has done in this period of time. Ultimately, even though this part is understandably very important, his strength is even more so. So in that period of time, Lorien took full advantage of his authority as he flipped through all the information, techniques, and secrets that the organization has, and frankly, what he saw fascinated him. Even though there wasn't a large number of recorded techniques that can be practiced, the records, stories, and list of cursed spirits killed and their different abilities truly opened Lorien's eyes and allowed him to expand his horizon. Even for someone like him who watched a large number of anime, movies, and comics, and has a great imagination, he still felt surprised. Hell, recently, there was even a cursed spirit that was born because of lachonophobia. This cursed spirit looked like it was completely made of vegetables, and it actually killed people by stabbing them using carrots. Thankfully though, it was quickly disposed of. It's just that it's a pity that its body couldn't be made into a soup. Additionally, there were also some stories that piqued Lorien's interest that talked about the use of heavenly restrictions and vows and how to apply them. Of course, such stories were only a small part of the information Lorien read to pass the time. What he truly focused on are the cursed techniques, barrier techniques, and secret techniques recorded. Reading and analyzing them using his ability, Lorien's mastery and understanding of energy greatly improved. After all, according to the analysis of his ability, all techniques are applications of energy. However, even though he read through all of them, what truly interested him are the barrier techniques, as he found them very fascinating. Moreover, for those cursed techniques, no matter what technique is recorded, Lorien could actually copy it using his ability. If it weren't for his interest in the way cursed energy manifests and is applied when using those techniques, he wouldn't have even bothered looking at them. This is very different from the barrier techniques that have huge potential and can even improve Lorien's strength when applied well. After all, even domain expansion is just an advanced application of barrier techniques. And that is indeed the case, as after he began studying it, Lorien discovered that basically anything could be done using it. The main thing about barriers is their ability to accept any concept and attribute it to a certain space. From creating a barrier that detects people, one that lowers presence, to a barrier that absorbs all negative energy inside, basically, the possibilities are infinite. So after he finished studying all the information available, Lorien started digesting them while also using his ability to further analyze and develop them, which improved his energy manipulation to an incredible level. Moreover, he didn't stop there, as Lorien tried pushing it again to the next level as he turned his attention to his extreme breathing technique, wanting to further improve it. From just extreme control of his physical body, Lorien wanted to also add the concept of extreme to his energy manipulation and to make it something learnable in a systematic way like breathing techniques. That way, he could also create simplified techniques that can be distributed to other people, which will help them to improve their energy and physical control, and power exertion all at the same time. An all-in-one technique for control and exertion, if you will. And this endeavor took Lorien about a year or so in a dream he constructed, which allowed him to evolve the extreme breathing technique. No, it can no longer be called that now, it should now be called extreme technique. After all, now, it is no longer just limited to extreme control over physical strength control, exertion, and swordsmanship, as energy manipulation was also added alongside energy exertion and application. Moreover, the use of energy was also integrated into his swordsmanship, pushing it to a whole other level. It is longer limited to just shrouding his sword with energy when fighting, as it has become truly part of his swordsmanship. I really wonder if this is what they call sword chi in those novels. Furthermore, there was one last thing that was improved, and that is his limit burst technique, which no longer just burns physical strength, stamina, and lifespan, but also energy, which made it much stronger. Pausing here, Lorien's train of thoughts couldn't help but turn towards his own ability, and more precisely his perception range. Tisk, it's a pity that there are no dream trees planted for now, otherwise, with the number of people living in such a modern setting, my perception range wouldn't have just reached 1,124 meters in 3 months. But hey, one still has to be patient, and this improvement isn't that bad anyways. No, it can even be called great. Chapter 126, Leaving Tunisia. However, speaking of techniques, the ones I created for the organization really improved their strength greatly. Now, even those normal people without innate curse techniques have some combat power. They no longer have to act solely as intelligence personnel who just take care of setting barriers and looking for information. As promised, after evolving his breathing technique and creating the extreme technique, Lorien proceeded to create a number of inferior versions to distribute to his subordinates. Those versions are collectively called blank techniques and are 3 in number, with each one representing a level, level 1 being the weakest and level 3 the strongest. The difference between each level is actually the complexity and exquisiteness, which directly reflect the power of each one. For example, blank technique, level 1 may be much better than normal martial arts, but it is incomparable to the control and power exertion gained after learning blank technique, level 3. It's just that even this strongest level is still far inferior to Lorien's own martial arts wise, as it is still in the mortal level, not holding any concepts such as the extreme in Lorien's extreme technique. However, even though this is the case, it still greatly improved everyone's strength, be it the jujutsu sorcerers who can now better control and exert their powers, or the normal people who now have a way to fight cursed spirits other than cursed techniques. Not to mention that because of the inexistence of any concept, those techniques are like a blank canvas waiting for people to draw on them and add their own experiences and concepts, which is why they are called blank techniques. This is also one of the reasons why Lorien did this, as he wanted to see what those sorcerers can come up with, which may be helpful to him in the future. It's just that even now, most members of the organization are still using the level 1 technique. This isn't because they don't want to learn the ones above it, it's just that they don't have enough contributions or points. Yes, after creating those techniques, Lorien actually proceeded to create a contribution system. After all, he won't give those techniques to people without any reason, at least this is the case for the level 2 and 3 techniques, as the first level is completely free. However, things don't end here, as there is a little catch. After creating those techniques, Lorien created 3 tombstone-shaped monuments and engraved a level of the technique on each of them. In doing so, Lorien used his newfound knowledge of heavenly vows and restrictions alongside his own ability to give those tombstones powers. Those powers are quite simple, the first is imparting knowledge, and the other is launching and enforcing heavenly vows and constraints. Creating those techniques, Lorien made it so that whoever wants to learn the blank technique has to do so through those monuments. And to do this, one has to cooperate with the heavenly vows set by the monument, which consists of swearing allegiance to the organization, not betraying it, and not sharing the blank techniques in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, if this vow were to be broken, all information about the organization and the power gained after joining it will disappear. However, when one loses something they gain something else. This is equal exchange, which is the core of heavenly constraints. And what people gain in this case is accelerated learning, allowing them to understand and practice those techniques much easier, and secondly an increase in physical strength. This may not sound much, but it is actually quite huge, considering that this instantly reduces the requirement for learning any of the techniques with the added bonus of physical power improvement. Now, those monuments act as an exchange center and a core of the organization, as all new members are now obliged to learn the first level of the technique as soon as they join it. At least this is the case for the normal people who want to join the organization. As for the innate cursed users, they can choose not to, but they also won't be able to learn any of the techniques. Moreover, there are also the 3 levels of bracelets distributed by the organization to its members, which follows the same setting as the black technique. When one learns blank technique, level 1, he'll get a level 1 bracelet which helps them absorb and filter external negative energy as to increase their cursed energy reserves. Those bracelets are created by Lorien in a manner that makes them only functional when paired with blank techniques or derivatives of it, otherwise, they are nothing more than beautiful accessories. This is also why Lorien didn't bother about making any vows around it, as there is nothing safer and more secure than his own power. This can help me better control the organization and will prevent any bad factors from emerging. Moreover, one can't expect to get things completely for free without paying anything. If you don't want to pay, then just try and get it. Surprisingly, when Lorien decided to do this, there wasn't much resistance from the members of the organization. Rather, they were quick to adapt, with only a few deciding to just watch how things developed for the time being. Quite the interesting bunch. But then, just as Lorien was deep in thought, a small knock sounded as his office door was then swung open. Listening to this, Lorien didn't even have to look back to know who it was. "You should wait for me to answer before opening the door." Yeah, dot. "You're not listening, are you? Bite me." That's a great proposition. Tisk. Hearing this, Leela rolled her eyes and decided to not continue on this track, as she most likely will lose this clash considering Lorien's shamelessness. "I heard that you are going to Japan." "Yeah, I'll be leaving tomorrow." "So soon?" "Yes." "Can I come with you?" Saying this, Layla's eyes shone a bit as she remembered that the rumored strongest jujutsu sorcerer is currently living there. Could he be stronger than Lorien? But just as she thought of this, she immediately denied the idea, as she knew how strong the guy in front of her was. Not knowing what the woman in front of him was thinking, Lorien immediately denied her. "No, a special grade needs to stay here, otherwise, variables may occur." "Come on. Sarah already has a special grade level of strength now, she can handle most things." Saying this, Leela immediately walked towards Lorien, hugging his right hand and swinging it back and forth, causing it to disappear between the 2 protruding mountains. Feeling this, Lorien couldn't help but take a deep breath as he then hugged her, causing her to yelp in surprise. But after reacting, she extended her hands, hugging Lorien's neck and hanging all her weight on it, as she then spoke again. "Pliazi." Feeling the pleasant sensation on his chest, Lorien couldn't help but waver as he lowered his head and then whispered in her ear in a gentle tone. "Nope. Fuck you. Now or later." Chapter 127, Japan. The following day, Lorien could be seen inside a big private jet, sitting comfortably on a cozy-looking couch. Taking small bites from the luxurious feast in front of him, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but wander outside, observing the mesmerizing view. A fluffy blanket of cotton-like clouds reflected the ball of fire that sank into the horizon. The sun's rays reached out like tendrils, painting the sky with a spectrum of colors that shifted and changed with every passing moment. Watching this, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. No matter how many times he watched this scene, he still enjoyed it every single time. Moreover, this scene could be considered the only highlight of this long 10-hour flight. Continuing to watch it, Lorien couldn't help but start thinking of the things he'll be doing after landing in Tokyo. But just when that thought came to mind, he suddenly felt stuck. I never thought of this before. I choose to come here because of the things that I can gain, but this is not the objective of my travel this time. I just want to have fun." Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but remember his previous world travels. Speaking of which, I never actually traveled just for fun ever since starting my journey, which is very ironic considering that the reason I even wanted to travel was to be free. But now that I look back at it, I feel even more tired than before traveling. It's just that I am indeed happier now considering the power I gained and relations I made. Shaking his head, Lorien knew that there was no other option. Things don't come easily without hard work and focus. Moreover, there was really nowhere to enjoy myself in the previous 2 worlds. When I first came to the Demon Slayer world, all I wanted was to get stronger and gain the power to protect myself, so I didn't have time to enjoy myself. But after I gained power, I couldn't find anything to do in that world as that era was a bit boring. As for the second world, that's the apocalypse, nothing to do there other than maybe picking up some girls. However, considering the state of the world, and the guy I met before reaching it, I wasn't really in the mood for that, so let's just forget about it. So now that I think about it, this world is the only one that I came to where I don't have to worry about anything and I can do whatever I want. Realizing this, Lorien's mind felt a bit more peaceful. Circumstances. Hey. Shaking his head, Lorien took a napkin from the table and wiped his mouth using it before placing it back and standing up. Nodding to the flight attendant, he then walked to the back section of the plane where the bedroom is located. 2 hours give or take before reaching the destination. I should take a nap before that. 3 hours later, outside Haneda Airport. Finally out. Taking a deep breath of the cold night air, Lorien stretched back, extending his hands as if hugging the dark sky. Seeing this, the long-haired Japanese woman next to him didn't interrupt him as she waited patiently for him to finish enjoying the moment. This woman is called Hisho. She is 25 years old, has long black hair, and is currently clothed in black business attire. She works for a company that Lorien bought the majority part of, and her job today is to welcome Lorien and help him deal with papers and accommodation. Lorien did this with the objective of getting an investor's visa and to make his life easier in Japan. After all, he couldn't just rush into a country without dealing with legal issues, that'll just make life more complicated for no real reason. Modern times, modern rules. If things can be dealt with simply, why complicate them? Moreover, as someone who has never been here before in his life, at least, not in modern times, he still needs a guide. So with this in mind, this action actually dealt with 2 birds using 1 stone. Groan. Groaning lightly, Lorien stopped stretching as he turned his head toward the woman next to him. Is everything prepared? Yes. This way please. Nodding in response, Hisho gestured toward the nearby car before continuing. We've prepared everything, this car will take you to your estate. If there is anything you dislike, please do tell us. Hearing this, Lorien smiled with satisfaction as he nodded toward her and then made his way toward the car. Tisk, this is much better than traveling normally, everything is prepared and there is no need for me to do anything. Well, this was Layla's suggestion, so I should thank her when I return. Speaking of which, I think that I came quite early as the plot begins in November, there are still 7 months until then. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't think much of it as he got into the car, and was quickly followed by the secretary who sat next to him. Vroom. Moving through traffic, Lorien kept watching the view from the window, feeling a bit bored. No matter what country, traffic is still very boring. Sir, do you want to see a summary of the company's current finances and state now? Suddenly spoke Hisho. Hearing this, Lorien turned his head toward her and responded lightly. I'm very tired now, just send it to me through an email, and I'll check it out when I have time. Saying this, he then closed his eyes, deciding to relax until reaching his destination, which took another 25 minutes. Screech. With the car coming to a halt, Lorien got out of it, followed by Hisho, who immediately began introducing the place to him. Sir, this is the... However, while she was speaking, none of Lorien's attention was actually focused on her, rather, he looked toward the estate he was going to live in with a look of interest in his eyes. It's just that his attention wasn't focused on the beautiful modern-styled house, but on something else. Interesting. Someone actually broke into my house. This is a new one. Moreover, focusing a bit more, this interest quickly grew stronger as he could feel that whoever was in there was at least a special grade sorcerer. Ha 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 ha. Interesting. Very interesting. To think that I'll meet such a thing on my first day here. However, I really wonder who it is. Chapter 128, Killing Intent. With his curiosity piqued, Lorien had no interest in continuing to listen to the introduction Hisho was giving about the house. All he wanted to do now was to go inside and meet this unknown guest. As for what he'll do after then? That'll depend on the visitor and Lorien's arbitrariness. So, with that in mind, Lorien turned his head toward Hisho, who was still speaking very enthusiastically. There is a gym on the second floor, a separate. Feeling a bit speechless, Lorien couldn't help but quickly interrupt her with a smile on his face. Thank you for all of the information, however, let's keep the rest as a surprise. I like discovering new stuff on my own. Hearing this, Hisho immediately stopped dead in her track and turned her head toward Lorien to respond. However, seeing him so up close and looking at the radiant smile on his face, she instantly fell into a daze, her face quickly turning red. Ah, yes. Seeing her stammer a bit, Lorien immediately reacted as a chuckle escaped his lips. However, he wasn't that surprised by this as he knew his own charm. After awakening his ability, Lorien's charm went through the roof, greatly improving his already great looks and giving him his exotic features such as his silver hair and golden eyes. Otherwise, Lorien's relationship with girls wouldn't have been such smooth sailing most of the time. After all, males aren't the only ones who are very interested in appearances, females are also the same, it's just that they hide it better. Cough. Coughing lightly, Lorien instantly woke Hisho up from her small trance, causing her face to redden up like a tomato. However, this only lasted for a moment before she reacted and returned to an indifferent state, which attracted Lorien's appreciation. Alright then, here are the house keys, I'll be on my way. If there is anything you require, please do inform me. Okay then, take care. Hearing Lorien's confirmation, Hisho gave a small bow before quickly getting into the car and fleeing. Seeing this, Lorien shook his head with a smile as he then made his way to the house while spinning the keys he just got on his finger. So, let's see who you are. Step. 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 Click. Opening the door, Lorien then followed his senses and walked toward the presence's location. Reaching it, he found himself in a big living room where a tall and slim man could be seen sitting on one of the couches. He has long black hair partially tied up behind his head, wore a Buddhist robe, and had a smile on his face. However, Lorien didn't like this smile one bit. It's too fake. It's just that this thought was quickly thrown aside as immediately afterward, he recognized this man. So it's him. Suguru Geto. Feeling surprised as well as confused, Lorien didn't know what was happening. After all, he had no interactions with the man and he didn't think that he did anything to attract his attention. Could it be because of what I did in Tunisia? It could be about the techniques and bracelets I created, or it may be something else entirely. However, even if that was the case, how did he get the information so fast? It has been only a month or so since those things got into use. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't bother guessing anymore. After all, he'll soon get the answer from the man himself. However, just as he was about to walk to one of the couches to sit down, Geto suddenly spoke. Hello there, welcome to Japan. Please, have a seat. Hearing this, Lorien paused for a moment as his eyes narrowed slightly. Oh, welcoming me to my own house? That's quite interesting. Responding with clear sarcasm in his voice, Lorien sat down on the couch opposite to the one Geto is sitting on as he started observing the man. The first thing Lorien noticed was that there was a scar missing from Geto's forehead. Oh right, he hasn't gotten brain exchange surgery yet. However, this may change today. Laying back comfortably, Lorien met Geto's eyes and questioned him. So, who are you, and what brings you to me at this late hour? Oh, my bad, I haven't introduced myself, have I? Well, nice to meet you Lorien, my name is Suguru Geto. Seeing the still friendly look on Geto's face, Lorien decided to play along with him for a bit, so he responded. Nice to meet you, I'd introduce myself, but I see that you've already got that covered. Ah yes, I've read about you for a while now, and I have to say that you are quite impressive. Thank you I guess. No, I am just speaking the truth. You are in possession of truly wonderful power, and I believe that such power is ought to be used toward great ends. Hearing this, Lorien almost facepalmed on the spot. He really had the urge to slash Geto on the spot right now. Is this guy here to recruit me into his weird band? However, not knowing or caring about what Lorien was thinking, Geto continued his speech with great enthusiasm. Have you ever questioned the current state of the world? This world where jujutsu sorcerers act in secret in order to protect the order of commonplace society. I think you have. After all, I've seen what you've done in that country and how you dealt with those monkeys who blocked your path. Saying this, Geto straightened his back before continuing. You see, there's this established paradox saying that the strong should accommodate the weak. It's deplorable. The apex of all creation has halted its own path of evolution. It's high time mankind should reconsider its strategy for survival. Which is why we'd like you to join us. Join what? Responded Lorien, looking somewhat interested. However, if one were to look closely, they'll notice the sarcasm hidden in his eyes. It's just that Geto didn't notice this as he quickly continued his speech. You see, we're going to kill all non-sorcerers and create a world with only jujutsu sorcerers. Pausing for a moment, a cursed creature appeared on his shoulder as a circular object fell from its mouth and into Geto's hand. We are very interested in your power, especially this thing you created. Seeing this object in front of him, Lorien's careless and sarcastic attitude was immediately thrown away. Immediately sitting upright, his face quickly changed from slight interest to indifference, and hidden deep in this indifference was bone-chilling killing intent. If there is something Lorien hated most, that would be someone touching his things without permission, and it just happens that Geto did just that. Chapter 129, Brain Dead. However, Lorien didn't immediately attack or show malice toward Geto, rather, he wanted to wait and get more information so he could build a complete picture of the situation. So, with that in mind, Lorien pretended not to care as he asked with clear interest. "Oh, how did you get that? I don't remember that it's for the sale." Not realizing the danger he was in, or rather not caring much about it, Geto continued speaking as he played with the stone-like bracelet in his hand. 3 weeks ago, one of my family members returned to his hometown in Africa, and he happened to pass by Tunisia. There he met some monkeys who wore those bracelets and used some sort of special techniques to fight. At first, he was mostly interested in those techniques, so he stayed around to observe. However, afterward, his interest was robbed by those bracelets that he thought at first were just part of the uniform. Saying this, Geto turned his eyes toward the bracelet in his hand as a look of wonder appeared on his countenance. "I have to admit, the craftsmanship is incredible. Even though we tried, we couldn't decipher or use it in any way. It is as if a key is missing, and from what I could tell, the key is actually the technique those monkeys are using. It's a pity that we also cannot get that." Hearing this, a look of sudden realization appeared on Lorien's face. "So that's how it is, it's actually Miguel. Well, another one to beat up. He better hope he doesn't meet me." With a clear view of the whole situation, Lorien couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, so, from what I understood, you guys killed and robbed one of my subordinates, and now you want me to join your organization and work for you? Ha ha ha, truly, this is the first time I've seen such a shameless request." Using his thumb to remove a tear that fell from the corner of his eye because of excessive laughter, Lorien then continued. "Never in my life have I seen someone so brain dead. It seems that the brain surgery was really needed." Now that he knew how everything came to be, Lorien didn't bother to hide any more. After all, he had never seen someone wanting to die so badly in his life. It's just that Geto didn't care about Lorien's reaction, as he had long expected this anger. Moreover, he didn't think that Lorien was a danger to him. After all, from the information he gathered, it seems that Lorien is someone who was born in a country where the jujutsu culture is dwindling. The only thing that is special about him is his cursed technique, which has something to do with creating things. So, even though he knew that Lorien was a supposed special grade, he didn't care much about it. Moreover, Geto has great confidence in his own strength, which makes his attitude toward other sorcerers a bit arrogant. This is very similar to how Satoru Gojo acts toward his enemies, as he doesn't care about what they think because of his own strength. Rather, he keeps a playful attitude and toys with them most of the time. Lorien also noticed this mindset. However, he has to admit that logically speaking, Geto does have a point. After all, if one were to base their actions on available information, that would indeed be the case. It's just that this time, Geto isn't in luck this time, as he met Lorien, the biggest anomaly in this world. False information kills people. I have to admit that those guys did a great job when fabricating information about me. Alright. It's decided, I'll give them a raise when I get back. However, even at this moment Geto still didn't realize how close to death he was, as he still responded. "I deeply apologize for that, it's just that some sacrifices are required to achieve a greater cause." Still looking rather calm, Geto continued his effort in inviting Lorien. "I don't think that the life of a monkey should affect our relationship and our goal. Moreover, we didn't kill your subordinate, we only left him unconscious, so let's put this aside. How about you join us and we'll compensate you later on?" Hearing this, Lorien's killing intent diminished slightly. However, he wasn't about to let Geto go like that. Tisk, luckily, this guy didn't kill anyone, otherwise, even if this may cause the subsequent plot to collapse and as a consequence my travel to be a bit boring, I'll kill him here and now. Thankfully, it seems that there is no need for that now as no one was killed. It's just that even though this is the case, I still have to punish him for touching my stuff without permission. Making up his mind, Lorien gave off a long sigh before standing up. Sigh. Well, you've prepared a great speech and all, but I refuse your invitation. Hearing this, Ghetto's eyes narrowed slightly as he stood up and faced Lorien. From the looks of it, it appears that he wasn't going to give up so easily. This guy's ability is of strategic nature, whatever side he joins will have a great increase in strength and potential, it can not only give those monkeys power but also increase the strength of jujutsu sorcerers. Thinking of this, the crazed look in Ghetto's eyes became more intense. If left alone, he may become a bit of a hindrance to our plan, so, it's better to just. However, just as Ghetto was thinking of this, Lorien's voice woke him up from his trance. Sigh. You have no idea how close to death you were just now, yet, it appears that you are still so insistent on dying. Looking a bit speechless, Lorien gave Ghetto a deep look as if trying to figure something out. I really don't know if you are really brave, or really dumb. You should really be thankful that you haven't killed my subordinate, or else, I would have hunted you guys one by one, after all, I am quite vengeful. Saying this, Lorien didn't bother to wait for Ghetto's response as he instantly released his full power. This time, Lorien wasn't going to hold back and use only one part of his power or anything like that. Today, he was going to go all out. First of all, it was a bit late right now and he wanted to end things quickly, and secondly, he wanted to make a statement to warn others, after all, he didn't want this to keep happening over and over again. Swish. Buzz. The first to bear the brunt of this power was Ghetto, who was right in front of Lorien. As the moment this power was released, Ghetto lost control of his body, feeling as if it got both stuck in quicksand and chained at the same time. Crack! Crack! Watching everything shatter right in front of his eyes, Ghetto felt his blood run cold as his eyes dilated, automatically entering into a fight or flight response. Even someone as powerful and experienced as him couldn't react at this moment, as all he could do was open his mouth and speak with a bit of a quiver in his voice. Who are? No. What are you? Chapter 130, Origin. Standing in front of Lorien, Ghetto didn't feel like he was standing in front of a human being at all, instead, it felt as if he was facing nature itself. It's similar to how people feel when they are suddenly on a beach and find themselves standing right in front of a huge tsunami. At that moment, no matter how many martial arts are practiced, muscles built, or how strong the willpower is, nothing really matters anymore, as it is all equally fragile in front of nature. However, Ghetto is still Ghetto after all, as after freezing for a moment, he instantly reacted and summoned his 3-section staff Playful Cloud, while also calling out a huge cursed spirit and attacking Lorien using it. Swish! It's just that when this huge worm-like cursed spirit was about to reach its target, an intense wave of multicolored energy rushed out of Lorien's body and into the surrounding. This burst of source energy wasn't an attack or anything like that, rather, it was just Lorien recklessly releasing the energy inside of his body into the surroundings. Buzz! Buzz! The moment this cursed spirit made contact with this energy, it instantly got smashed into particles. However, things didn't end there, as this energy continued spreading everywhere completely unimpeded, even piercing through the roof and into the clouds. Boom! Crack! Reacting quickly, Ghetto immediately jumped back, creating some distance between himself and Lorien, and in doing so, he got a better view of the whole situation, which caused his eyes to fiercely shrink. Right now, there was no villa to speak of anymore, as most of it vanished. However, that wasn't the thing that shocked Ghetto the most. Rather, it was the shattered clouds right above, which now formed a ring-like structure reminiscent of the Fate Grand Order sky ring and the river of multicolored aurora in the sky that looked like the northern lights. This power even affected the weather and caused a celestial phenomenon. No. To be more precise, the clouds above were forcefully smashed when that energy shot into the sky. As for those lights, they are just a byproduct of this energy. However, what even is that? I have never seen such energy in my life. It doesn't feel like cursed energy at all. This power is truly... Finally realizing the bad situation he was in, Ghetto took a deep breath and decided to strike quickly, not leaving a chance for Lorien to attack, otherwise, it is unknown how things will go. So with this in mind, Ghetto immediately skipped all the attacks he would normally use and decided to use his final attack. Maximum, Uzumaki. This is the maximum technique of Geto's cursed spirit manipulation, which combines a massive number of collected curses into one powerful attack. At this moment more than 2,500 curses were combined, which is a bit fewer than the number used when battling Yuta in the original timeline, which was over 4,000 curses. However, there is nothing Geto could do about that for now, as this was all the cursed spirits he had collected so far. It's just that even when this black vortex of curses appeared in Geto's hand and was ready to be launched, Lorien didn't pay him much attention. Instead, most of his focus was concentrated on, well, actually nothing. Right now, Lorien's mind turned completely blank as he enjoyed the moment. Ever since starting his journey, this is actually one of the few times that Lorien fully released himself and went all out without worry. This release isn't in terms of strength or power though, as that didn't matter much, rather, it was about thoughts. After all, usually before fighting Lorien would analyze the situation and think about the consequences of his action, if it is optimal or not, how he could go about achieving his objective in different ways, will it affect his relationship with certain people, and in by so will it make affect future plans or not. And as Lorien usually puts it, even if I don't like you much, as long as you don't affect me and my plan, I won't bother with you. This is good and all, however, this is not free, as most of the time, when following the brain one suppresses the heart, it is thoughts over emotions. Normally, this would have been good, after all, this would reduce risks and make life quite a bit easier. However, when taking Lorien's power into consideration, this would be quite bad, even terrible. After all, Lorien's power is an extension of his origin, which is dreams and reality, and only after its awakening did he gain the ability to manipulate it. Strictly speaking, an origin is the starting point that defines one's existence and directs one's actions through life. The important part here is directing one's actions through life, which also means that the truer one is to his origin, the easier it is to become stronger. For example, if one were to awaken the origin of evil and start doing justice and save people all over the world, this would be very contrary to his origin, which will cause his power to stagnate. It may not completely stop growing, but it'll be painfully slow. It is akin to someone having a talent in fire manipulation but instead choosing to learn water manipulation. Yes, it is indeed possible that with some luck said person will be able to reach extreme heights in the future, however, it'll be painfully hard and much more complicated than it would have been if he were to just practice fire manipulation. And this is exactly what was happening with Lorien. After all, dreams in nature represent freedom, hope, and complete unconstraint. However, if we were to look at his past actions, it would be a stretch to give him any of those traits. It's just that luckily for him, his origin isn't just dreams, it's dreams and reality. If it weren't for the reality part of his power, which represents rationality, facts, and truth, Lorien wouldn't have grown nearly as fast. Don't get me wrong, he would have still grown quickly because of the nature of his power itself, however, it would cost a lot more. For example, let's say he absorbs 100 units of energy. If he were true to his origin, this amount of energy will allow him to increase his strength by, let's say, 100 units. However, if he were not true to his origin, this same amount will only allow him to increase his strength by around 40 or 50 units. And things don't end there, as there is also the power exertion part, as without feeling the true nature of one's own power, its full potential will be very hard to exert. For example, 100 units of energy would exert 100 units of damage if one were to be true to his origin, however, it'll only exert about 50 units or less if that were not the case. However, luckily for Lorien, the reality allowed him to grow unconstrained, and thanks to it, Lorien could also grow normally as long as he keeps somewhat of a balance between those two aspects of rationality and emotion. This is the hidden truth about the powers born from one's own origin. They may allow for the easy birth of strong powers, but they also have a bit of a catch. Aside from this awakening being very dangerous and a bit uncontrollable, this power is also more focused on being true to one's own self and following one's heart to the fullest. This is very different from the normal power that one practice on their own that doesn't have such limitations. Ha 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 ha. So that's how it is.
Thanks for listening.